Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year from SmashBoxxTV. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V, as we're here for podcast 228.
January 1st, 2019, first day of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing this a while.
It's the first of the month. Get up. Little Bone Thugs and Harmony. All right, well, glad you guys could join us as we're kicking off 2019. Looking forward to a great night here tonight. We do not have our beloved Dynamite. Instead, we're going to get Dixon Jowers, who I don't think he's ever joined us during a live podcast before. So it should be pretty exciting. We're going to get some insights and some feedback and some thoughts from Dixon. Of course, we'll be able to talk to him a little bit about his podcast, some of the stuff he does, and maybe what we'll see or hear from him in the 2019 season. And then shortly after we wrap up with Dixon, we're going to move over to Steve Rico, who is celebrating a birthday today. Steve Rico, a January 1st birthday, and it's a very special one for a number of reasons. So we're excited to have Steve Rico join us. He's going to come in at about 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 his time, whatever. So in about 30 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we'll have Steve Rico join us. We'll probably have a lot of similar questions. Him being a owner, of course, over at Legacy Disc, I'll be interested to see what he thinks of
a lot of the player movements, a lot of
all these transitions.
I'm really curious to ask some questions like, what does it take to sign a player these days with all the competition that's out there and Legacy being one of the smaller players out on the board?
Yeah, well, I know he has some insight. Him and I have talked offline about what he is seeing as the composition and the entire makeup here of our disc golf community, what it means for the sponsored players. A ton of new announcements made today, some possibly shocking, some not so shocking. And those are some of the things that we can maybe check in with Dixon to see what some of his thoughts are on those. He follows our players quite closely as well.
Right before we came on, we had breaking news.
Yes, breaking news. Who was the latest that you saw, Johnny?
Right here. Isn't it, wasn't it Mr. Philip Bartholomew signing with Discraft? What?
I know. I didn't see that one coming.
I never, of all the people, never saw Phil.
Exactly. So congratulations. One of the many announcements that were made here today. So I think we can move over and get a little action from somewhere else in the Midwest, and we can welcome him to the show for the first time. Of course, he joins us frequently whenever we've been live with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We'll talk about what we'll see in 2019. Let's bring him in, Dixon Jowers.
LSU. But is that your
sponsor?
It is January I don't
1st.
Understand.
Yeah. I love disc golf, but it's January 1st. This is college football day.
It is. All right, Dixon. So for someone like myself who doesn't follow the footballs too closely, what was going on in the college football realm today?
Well, all of what they call them the New Year's Day games. So, I mean, it's kind of the big bowl games were happening today. There's been bowl games going on for like 3 weeks of teams that nobody cares about or even knows that they have a team have been playing. But it's just been within the last couple of days that meaningful games have taken place. And one of them was today of LSU vanquishing this ridiculousness about UCF being a possible national title contender. So I was glad that problem got solved and we don't have to hear that silliness anymore.
Our Wisconsin Badgers dominated in the Pinstripe Bowl out in New York. So
sure.
It's a bowl I'd never, ever heard of. I don't know if anyone had ever heard of it before it was announced that we were in it. So good on Wisconsin.
There are new bowl games every single year that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
There was actually a Cheez-It Bowl this year.
Okay.
And the game was as terrible as you could imagine the Cheez-It Bowl would be.
I get it. What is it fair to say that is all just marketing, an attempt to generate more tourism dollars, to add a little bit more revenue, whether it's for the schools or for the programs? Is that all just marketing?
Oh, for sure. And the reality is, I mean, they'll have games where, 20% of the stadium is filled, and they'll have that same game next year. I mean, these things still make money somehow. So, I mean, they're if you can have a product and nobody shows up and you still come out with a profit, okay, that's fine. I mean, they keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. And it generates money for schools. It gives the players some cool thing to look forward to after the season. They get incredible, what we would call players packs. They get them for these bowl games, and they are incredible, some of the stuff that they get. So, I mean, it's a win-win for everybody except for the person that enjoys watching good college football.
And most of the players.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting trend that started over the last couple of years that really seems to be kicking off this year is players that are going to be first, second round draft choices in the NFL. They are intentionally sitting out games because they don't want to hurt their draft stock to become the Cheez-It Bowl champion. I mean, there's no reason to put millions of dollars on the line for something like that. And it started quite a conversation within college football about this idea of abandoning your team, or you never really loved the colors or something like that. And people are saying, hey, I've got if I make it to the first round in the NFL, I'm getting generational money, not just money to take care of myself and my kids, but my grandkids, to take care of my parents. I mean, that's worth missing one football game for. And for college media to talk bad about me for a couple of weeks, and then they'll forget about it as soon as the game's over.
And you can kind of equate this to disc golf in that I see the players 6 months ago, they were saying how much they loved their current place they are at. I love this school. I would never go anywhere else. This is my favorite. Yep. I've always dreamed about going here. And then when it comes down and dirty, oh yeah, no, I'm not playing the Cheez-It Pinstripe Bowl. I got millions of dollars ahead of me with this my other new friend over here in the NFL. So there are definite parallels.
Yeah, and along with that, so like the example that came out today, Dana Holgorsen has been the head coach of West Virginia football for, I don't know, a decade or so. And so he just had a big signing class, signed like 18 new people or something 3 weeks ago. And then today he's leaving West Virginia to go to Houston. So all of those people that went based on his word and how much he loved the school and how much he sold the school and how much that Blacksburg is going to be a great place for you to go to school, or not Blacksburg, that's Virginia Tech, wherever West Virginia is. It's a great place for you to go to school. I'll be with you the whole time. I mean, he's out of town now. He found a better gig.
Yeah, that's common for college football coaches. Once they get the chance, they tend to move and leave the kids in the dust. But
well,
and I mean, I'll make the transition for you. I mean, reading Ricky's stuff today about how it's Innova is the greatest company in disc golf, and it was my first sponsor, and I love being here and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you were saying all of those things about Latitude a couple of months ago, and really at this point, everybody that just switched the team, even if they're coming to DD or even if they're coming somewhere, I mean, they don't really have any experience to say whether or not this is a great company that I'm going to be a part of. They're just going off of, the conversations that we've had, to get the contract signed, basically.
Well, Dixon, I really am interested in your feedback on this. Obviously, you're a huge sports fanatic, but you're also a little bit old school, like Johnny and myself, in that way back when we started playing golf, there were two companies in disc golf.
Yep.
And I apologize, Dave McCormick. I'm going to negate you for a moment here. But there were two companies. There was Innova and Discraft. And that was it. That was what you were concerned about, is you were sponsored by one of the two teams. They were kind of the ultimate rivals, who had more titles or who had the better disc, but it was one or the other. Obviously, that dynamic has changed up in part due to Dynamic and Latitude, and, of course, Prodigy with the way they went about sponsorship back in 2013. So does it even faze you anymore to see Paul, who was 12 years of Innova, to then switch to the ultimate rival in Discraft, or should we just consider that rivalry not even a thing anymore if you're new school?
Well, I mean, first of all, I know you were rocking the number 3 roller back in the day. Don't discount Lightning.
Yes. The factored ones, of course.
But I mean, yes, when the news first came out about, and if some of my podcast listeners, we talked about this on the last episode, and so some of this stuff is going to be rehashed for them. But when the news first came out that Paul was leaving to go to Discraft, I said there's no way that's happening. He might be leaving, I doubt it, but there's no way he's going to Discraft, because Innova and Discraft have a very professional dislike for one another. The companies don't like each other. I have no idea what the individuals involved, how they feel about the other individuals, but the companies do not like each other. And there are, long-held rumors about, corporate espionage and, some shenanigans going on about hurting the other company's bottom line and things like that between the two companies. So I was shocked to hear that it was going to be Discraft, but then once I started hearing a little bit about how maybe Paul's relationship with Innova wasn't what we all thought it was. It started to make a little more sense. But then $250,000 a year for 4 years is going to cover over a lot of wounds. That's a salve that pretty much all of us would be willing to apply.
Yeah, you can buy a lot of Neosporin with that. I think you're fine.
Especially disc golf wounds. I mean, it's one thing when you're talking about these much larger professional contracts. It's just the scale that we're at now, and when you're talking about that kind of money, you're exactly right. That allows for a little bit more flexibility. So we've seen just this huge shakeup, and I continue to think that's the story. Not just Paul moving, which is maybe the most shocking of them all, but then, like you just mentioned, now Ricky going back to Innova, and then literally dozens of other people all transitioning around. And I do think, at least we mentioned last week, and Alex Geisinger and Adam Hammes, two Wisconsin, Minnesota guys. They have been very hardcore Innova. And then all of a sudden, not only do they announce, okay, well, we're not with Innova next year, and then they both come out as being with Discraft. And I kind of said last week, wherever Alex goes, Adam's going, and vice versa. And that was exactly announced.
Yep, that confirmed.
What do you think about all of the, Max Nichols leaving Innova, now going to Discraft? What do you think about all of these? I don't want to call them second tier, but all these
They're
guys
second tier announcements.
Yeah, that aren't the Paul and Ricky. Everyone else, what do you think of all of those?
I mean, there's always, the day each year, and it differs for each company, but, there's Prodigy Day, and then there's Dynamic Disc Day or whatever, where the team captain says, okay, now you can make announcements, and all of our news feeds are filled with everybody that's joining Team Prodigy next year for a day. And then a week later, we learn about everybody that's going to, to Innova or wherever. Like, so apparently today was the Innova Day, and today was Legacy Day. I just saw that, I don't know how fresh this is, but I saw within the last couple of hours that that Devin is going with Innova. Obviously, he made an announcement a couple of weeks ago that he was leaving Latitude, which, I mean, maybe that's something else we'll talk about, but Latitude is going in the exact opposite direction. They are either cutting or losing tons of people, and adding not very many. They are adding
Grady Shue.
Grady Shue, yep.
Grady Shue, there we go. I just saw him in Walmart 2 days ago. Can't remember. I couldn't think of his name. But so, I mean, for the most part, they're dumping everybody. And I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but they are trimming their team down, I guess would be a better way to say it. And then everybody else is picking up. I'm really interested to see what happens with Discraft, because they are putting out a lot of money right now. I don't know if all of those guys that they're bringing over can sell enough discs to make it worth that. So if that's, I hope they're not planning on, this is only going to work if we sell enough Frisbees to make up for it. I can't imagine that that's the plan. So where's all this extra money coming from to make this happen? And man, next year's off season is going to be incredibly boring because everybody's signed up for 3 years. Who are we going to talk about next December?
Yeah, I said the same thing last week, that for the next 2 to 3 years, we've got nothing. Our off seasons are going to be so boring. The only question is, right now, with the players we know, who knows what up and comers are going to show up and where they're going to sign? How long did Ricky sign for? Did Ricky get I don't believe he ever said anywhere the number of years. And Innova traditionally has been a 1-year company. Of course, now we've seen them extend. I think Colin got 2 years. Sexton got 3.
Sexton got 3.
I don't know of anybody else that got anything more than a 1-year extension.
Yeah, and
I think the next thing that'll happen in an off season that'll be really interesting is, and it almost happened with Page and Prodigy, would be if there was a really public breaking of a contract to go from one company to another. That could be something very interesting that could happen.
I don't think... I mean, yeah, that definitely could be. It's just so hard. We said it last week that these players, most of them, don't want to burn bridges, because we've seen things like Ricky from Innova to Prodigy to Lat, now back to Innova. They don't want to talk they don't want to talk ill of another company if they can help it.
Right.
Because you don't know where we don't know where the future is. For some reason, if Innova goes belly up, not going to happen. Where do all these players go? Or Discraft, or DD, or Legacy, or any of them? They're going to want to be picked up somewhere else. So
I'll ask that in this frame, Dixon. What do you make of this massive push by Discraft? Like specifically, like how as a company move, whether it's financially or otherwise, or just branding or management, whatever it is. If you were just looking at it from the outside, what do you make of such a massive move by Discraft?
It is very unlike their disc golf character over the last decade, or maybe even since they've started doing disc golf. I don't know about them much from before I was getting involved in disc golf. I guess almost 20 years ago now. It's out of character. Now, I don't know if that is because they are just making an intentional shift of here's how we're going to do this. I don't know if they're all of a sudden selling a whole lot more Ultra Stars and they've got money to spend. I would have thought that they would have had pressure put on them to make sure that the Paul thing works out, even if it was just Paul coming. But now adding Uli as a team captain, so I know Uli sees himself as he is on the cusp of winning a major, winning Worlds. And so he expects that sort of support of I am right there. And so I doubt Uli was cheap either. Now, I don't think he was on the same level as like the Rickies and the Sextons, but not cheap. A lot more than kind of your typical player. And then if you're adding other touring players, touring players these days expect a stipend of $1,500 a month or so, somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. They expect tournament entry fees. They expect travel costs. They expect some sort of support with signature discs or plastic lines or something like that. So even if, say, Alex and Adam aren't getting that, that definitely not that Paul and Ricky money, but even not getting that Uli money, it's still not cheap. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of Frisbees that need to be sold in order to make up for that sort of stuff. Because I don't think any disc golf company is in the place where they can just lose money on a sponsored player year after year and be happy about it. I don't think anybody's going to bring that sort of panache to any company.
Well, and I think it'll be interesting to see where the players continue to place the value. And you just mentioned a couple of really good points. What is it that's drawing players away from one team and possibly over to another? Is it a guaranteed travel or some kind of a player stipend? Is it a certain amount of discs they're getting per year? Probably not. Is it maybe a mold or a disc that they're getting from a signature or a Tour Series disc? Let's face it, certain disc models are just inherently going to sell better than others. Nate Sexton obviously is one of the most beloved guys in disc golf, but he also has one of the most popular discs in disc golf. So it's a perfect mesh for him to cash very large checks.
Well, and also, Discraft has made offers to several other people that were either matched by their current company or they just decided to turn them down. So even besides the folks they've added, apparently Discraft made a run at Calvin, and Innova matched what they were offering. I know that the Discraft offered a couple of DD players. And they chose to turn it down. So it's not only what they are currently paying, but they were offering even more than that.
And Kevin Jones, I think, openly said, he was being pursued as well. So
yeah, Kevin.
I don't know if Bob or Mike Wagner hit the lottery or something. They've got a lot of money that they're throwing around all of a sudden, and that could be really good for disc golf. It definitely takes those handful of players and gives them more security. But none of that player sponsorship money goes into tournaments. It doesn't go into, disc development. It doesn't go for quote unquote growing the sport. It doesn't go into any of those other things. So it's an interesting way to invest. It's really saying we think that there's a good income to come from having a player out there with Discraft on a shirt. Whereas Latitude seems to be pulling away from that philosophy of it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. We could sponsor, 50 local players for what we paid Ricky, and we're going to have probably more impact by doing it that way.
Well, and that was going to be exactly my question. It seems as if Innova has trimmed, I think is a good term, and Latitude is definitely, pulling back considerably. What do you make of, and maybe you kind of just answered that, what do you make of that business decision as opposed to a very aggressive approach by Discraft?
I mean, I know Latitude didn't go into the offseason with the idea of, well, let's trim Ricky. I know that wasn't the case. There was negotiations, and they were so far apart that it just wasn't going to happen, and so they didn't pursue it any further. And I mean, so that wasn't an intentional thing. Now, and I don't know if it was in response to that or if that was already their plan. We have seen that that Felberg is no longer sponsored, that Devon is no longer sponsored. I don't know for certain. I think they're waiting to hear back from Patrick Brown. I don't think Bobby Music is sponsored anymore. Matt Bell is no longer there. Zachariah Johnson is no longer there. So I mean, they are. And I asked, I obviously I have relationship with DD and with the Latitude guys, and I asked, like, what's the spin? Like, how does Latitude pull this off without giving out the vibe that we are making zero money and we have to cut costs somewhere? Because that's kind of what it looks like with this sort of, I don't know if fire sale is the right word, but just kind of getting rid of all inventory. And it was that's never really what they wanted to be, to have that giant team. And it just kind of grew over the last few years, adding a couple players here and there, not being very strict with players that aren't following their requirements. I mean, because you don't have contracts with kind of your street level folks. And they never were cutting anybody, and they were adding 5, 10, 15 players a year. And all of a sudden they had a team of, 110 players or something like that, and you could only name 15 of them. Unless you knew them personally. And I think they just saw that, man, we're spending a lot of money on something where there's no return. Let's be smarter about it. Not that these guys that are no longer on the team were not giving a return, but I think just in a general sense, they wanted to cut their team way back, and what their outflow was for sponsorship. They had to figure out a different way to do that sort of stuff. But they still got Johnny as kind of their flagship guy now. But other than that, I guess Emerson Keith, I mean, he had a good showing at the end of the year at VPO. But other than that, I'm not sure if very many names on Latitude from last year are going to be names that people recognize.
Well, and then you got to go ahead and think about, with all of these teams, who is managing them and who is overseeing all of the things that you were just talking about, in terms of not only getting their contract set up and finalized, but then also adhering to them. Is there going to be any awkwardness when a Sexton or a Holly Finley or a Paul Ulibarri has to go to some of these players and say, okay, here are the guidelines that you are currently missing on, and let's get this cleaned up. And I understand, there's team captains have different roles, and all of these trusted people have been put into those very difficult situations, but you just have to wonder how that's going to shake out. And these teams continuing to expand and grow. And I think about, like, what will Paul Ulibarri, how many hours, and he's messaged me about being on tonight even, how many hours a week will he be truly dedicated to dealing with team interactions? I mean, if you have this team that's 10 or 15 or 20 or 40 deep, you're talking about some legit, some actual time spent on we'll say human resources.
Did you say Holly Finley?
Yeah, made the team captain over at the women's Innova team.
Women's Innova team.
So
okay,
I thought I'd throw that in there.
I thought maybe I'd misheard something, or that she was not. Okay, so.
I just wanted to throw that in there as she was, I think, announced that today as well.
At least how DD was set up, and I can't speak for these other companies. I mean, there was when I was doing that role, and then now that Robert's doing it, there is the team manager and there's a team captain.
Okay.
And Eric McCabe was always the team captain, and McCabe's job was kind of on the field stuff. Talk to people about if they've got questions about form, or they've got questions about tournaments or things like that, or their behavior, how to act professionally. But if somebody wasn't honoring their contract in some way, that wasn't up to McCabe to solve that problem. That was up to the team manager to have discussions with those people. So I mean, I can't imagine that Uli is having to call everybody to check up how their tournament went this last week, and and to give them pep talks or anything like that. But there is a logistical side of it. So DD had, when I was doing that, it was around 70. I think it was 72 players at that time. New disc comes out. I mean, somebody's got to put all of that stuff together. You got to put 3 or 4 versions of that disc into 72 different boxes and mail them off, and make sure that the guy that loves pink gets the pink ones. Make sure the guy that wants the lightweight ones gets the lightweight ones, and that guy loves rainbow stamps but not black stamps. And so figuring all that stuff out, I mean, there's a logistical side to when you add a bunch of players to your team. It's adding cost to your company of man hours that have to be accounted as well. It's not like you just write your check for $250 to Paul, and that's the only cost that it is all year. I mean, there's lots of other stuff that goes on with that.
Yeah, and I would follow that up and say exactly that. If you have 100 players on your team and 2 new molds come out, let's just say you're able to have a little I was going to say economies of scale, but you have 2 molds. You, like you said, put 2 of each mold in there, ship those out. You're talking $5 to $8 to $10 in shipping alone times 100 players. Obviously, you have the cost of the disc, and then the man hours to put that all together. And that's every time you have 1 or 2 new releases. All of that adds up, and I think a lot of people forget about some of those back end costs that are associated with having a team, regardless of the size. You always have those other things to worry about: the clothing, the apparel, and then all that one-on-one contact. So you have both tangible and intangible things when it comes down to managing a team or having all those expenses. It's crazy.
Well, and I mean, you want to make sure that they're doing the things that I mean, most of anybody's team is not showing up at that national tour. I mean, there's a lot of players that are never involved in that sort of stuff. They're just playing local A's and B tiers. They're running minis. They're running tournaments. They're doing that sort of stuff. And so just checking in on them to see how things are going. How can we be a better company to take care of those needs for you in areas like that? I mean, that's just a lot of conversation that goes on. And if you want players to really feel like they're part of something, you have to have those conversations. You can't just do a checkup and look at somebody's PDGA page, a couple of times every quarter and, make sure you post, he got a 5th place at the local C tier. I mean, that doesn't engender people to want to stay and be a part of your company. And reality is right now for touring disc golfers, they can love a company a whole lot, but if somebody comes and offers them a whole lot more money, I mean, there's not a lot you can do. Because the reality, I mean, outside of the podium when everybody is hey, I love Innova and I was throwing my Thunderbird or whatever, outside of those times, all of these people that are on different teams are eating dinner together, they're traveling together, they're staying together in the same rooms. I mean, there's not that sort of animosity between a Discraft player and an Innova player as there is in general, especially on fan boards of Innova players hating Discraft players, and everybody's tired of Trilogy guys and whatever else. I mean, it doesn't. It's not the same way for the players themselves. I mean, there is a lot less tribalism and a lot more, hey, what do I got to do to make sure I have enough money because I'm tired of eating ramen?
Yeah, no, you're right. And to further that point, or to back it up, just today when talking about Hanley Finley, for instance, she announced that she's going to have a Tour Series disc of sorts with Innova and her captain, and she's planning on touring with MJ in this upcoming season. Obviously, MJ, a huge Discraft player, so her with Innova. Obviously, Nate and Val had no problems meeting and then eventually getting married and doing other things while they were, for the longest time, on
Making
other
beer.
teams. So you're exactly right. That there's not that animosity. It's funny how someone's willing to go fight so hard on a message board for their favorite team. Meanwhile, all the actual players get along just fine.
Right.
So before we let you go, we're going to have Steve Rico here in just a few minutes, but I think you were made aware of at one point as well that Smashbox wouldn't be doing the live broadcasting for the Disc Golf Pro Tour in this upcoming season in 2019. You were a huge part of as we transitioned into having a booth set up and going that route. And then obviously you put together the the Circle Zero show and a bunch of other assets and pieces, and did some really great interviews with our players. And then somehow you sat next to me and played along with all my great jokes. Where do you stand?
I don't remember that part.
For 2019? Do you have a set schedule? Do you have a plan, or are you locked into any given media situation at all?
I'm a free agent. I don't know. I don't know what the Disc Golf Pro Tour plan is for next year. I mean, for the same reason that I reached out to Steve a year ago to say, hey, I would like to be involved with the Pro Tour. I think it is definitely going places. I think that they're doing good things for disc golf. And if I have any sort of skills that can go along to help that, I'm willing to use those in that service. But I don't know what their plan is. I don't think it would be what it was last year, of where I was traveling to every event, even if they were to contract with me again. I imagine it would be some sort of, because we proved the concept that you don't have to be at the course doing the live broadcast. Although we talked about it all year long about the benefits and the downsides to that. So I would imagine that it would happen from wherever I'm at if there was something going on. But as far as what it is, I have no idea. As far as who's doing the edited coverage, I have no idea. As far as who's doing the live broadcast, I have no idea. I am barely a step ahead of kind of general message board right now. I mean, I've had a couple of conversations with Steve and some text message chats, but that's about it.
Okay. Well, I think we're all awaiting. I mean, last time I talked to Steve a few weeks ago, I had kind of said the exact same thing. I'm like yourself. I'm excited to see what step 2 is, or part 2 of his plan is, in terms of the media release, what that's going to mean for other post-production or any other media entities, and what steps they're going to need to take, the permissions and the rights and all those types of things. I'm excited to see how that unfolds as well, because he's obviously got so much of it taken care of in-house. We'll see what that means for the rest of the disc golf community, media-wise, outside of his in-house production.
Everyone's still waiting on part 2. Part 2 of the media plan.
Yeah. My podcast folks were really getting on to me, because after they after everything happened right around Thanksgiving, I had said, hey, I'll record the next episode as soon as we get the disc golf media plan, because the last time I had talked to Steve at that point, it was going to come out that very next week. There was going to be a thing that came out every day for a whole week that kind of revealed more and more of the plan. And so I was like, hey, next week it'll be here. And then since then, everybody's been like, hey, where's the next episode? And I've kept waiting. And apparently somewhere along the line, I said, don't worry, there will be one before the end of the year. And so towards the end of last week, people were like, hey, bud, the end of the year is getting close and you hadn't done anything. So that's why I hurried and recorded an episode yesterday and got it out.
Saying that you didn't know.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right, Dixon. Well, as you just alluded to, of course, you do a podcast. Let everyone know kind of what it's about and where they can find it, and what we can expect to hear this year in 2019 from it.
Sure. It's called On the Box with Dixon Jowers. The easiest way to get a hold of us is we have a Facebook group, or wherever you have a podcast, wherever you get your podcast from, it should be on there. And I'll take a second to brag. I think our Facebook group is one of the better discussion places for disc golf stuff. We have a lot of well-informed, rational, calm, kind people that are having discussions.
What?
And I know, and I the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, maybe I shouldn't talk about it, because then there's trolls that are like, well, then I'm going to go screw that place up. But for the most part, even when, there was a guy that came on a couple of weeks ago. He'd been a part of the group for, 6-8 months or something like that. And he put this giant post about how disc golf is racist. And as long as, disc golf keeps being for white men and there's no people of color and there's no women involved in any decision making, it's going to keep going that way. And when I first read that, I was like, oh, brother, where is this going to go? It's a couple of days before Christmas. I don't want to get into all this. And everybody handled it really well. So typically the each episode is broken down into 4 parts. The majority of the podcast is tournament preview, tournament review, talking about the ins and outs of particular rounds. I love the statistics that UDisc brings to everything, in looking at that stuff. So that's generally where the first two segments are going to be looking at the last tournament that happened and looking at the one that's coming up. The third segment is usually whatever topic is happening, and that almost always comes out of the tournament. Let's talk about Val getting disqualified. Let's talk about the railroad tie in Jacksonville. Let's talk about James holding off Paul, and what does this mean for the future of James Conrad? Happening at the MVP Open. That's generally our third segment, and then the fourth segment is always something that has nothing to do with disc golf. A lot of times it's about other sports or movies, and then also food. We talk about food quite a bit, with kind of our one of our biggest discussions from this last year. We had a bracket of best food combinations that everybody voted on, and we played it out. And biscuits and gravy won as the best food combination over bacon and eggs, over cookies and milk, over beer and pizza. It was a landslide winner. So biscuits and gravy.
There is nothing better than chocolate and peanut butter.
All right, Dixon. Well,
I mean, as you can see, I mean, we can get people riled up about some things, but when it comes to disc golf, they're pretty normal. But when it comes to segment 4, we have loud, vociferous opinions.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one final question before we let you go, and it's got to be just a yes or a no. Chris Cobb, a huge supporter out there, and it's a very valid question. Yes or no, is all of the tournament switching, sponsorship, movement, team stuff good or bad for this? Is it good for the sport? Yes or no?
That's not a yes or no question.
Oh, it is today, because Johnny's going to hit the button. He's going to cut you off.
I mean, it depends on what segment you're talking about. I mean, it's in the short run, it's a good thing. Okay. We'll see if it pans out for the long run.
All right, Dixon. Well, it's a little bit overdue that we had you, actually, and we're super glad we could. Great way to kick off 2019. As Dixon just mentioned a moment ago, go check out his Facebook page. Lots of civil discussion actually does take place out there on the box with Dixon Jowers, and the podcast is named the same. Make sure you go find it on all of your traditional podcast apps. And we'll look forward to talking to you more here in 2019. One way or another, we'll collaborate on some stuff.
All right. Thanks, buddies.
All right. Thanks a lot,
night.
Dixon.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. And I will follow it up and say, in addition to that, Dixon very graciously actually kind of jumped in at the last moment tonight. I had reached out to him not more than 15 minutes before the show and just said, hey, are you available?
He jokingly said that he was available tonight, but he didn't expect us to actually take him up on the offer.
And I said, no, I think it sounds like a great idea actually to take him up on the offer to have him. So thank you for the flexibility there. So I think we can get our next guest. Hopefully he's out there and available. I'm going to send him a message and make sure that he's ready to go. Ready for you.
Looks like I've got him lined up. I'm just waiting to see if he's online. Mm-hmm. Do you think we're going to see Ricky's contract publicized other than the years?
I don't think we will. I don't think that's been a
traditionally an Innova thing.
Yeah, Innova has not often, if ever, really openly discussed the details of their contracts, which, as you mentioned earlier, are typically 1 year. We know that Colling's on for multiple years. We know that Sexton's on for multiple years, but we don't know any of the details of the contracts. In fact, I'll go as far as saying McBeth telling us and the world what is happening, he's almost been one of the few. And I've asked him and said, well, would you like that if more people discuss it? I know you and I have discussed that. Would you like it if more details on there? He's like, yeah, I'm good with it. Well, in all fairness, you're on top of that mountain. No one's getting more than you. So you might be more inclined to share when you...
Is it a power play?
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, I had said a while ago, I thought it would be silly to give Ricky the Destroyer.
Yep.
Simply because it's going to sell no matter whose name you put on it.
You could put my name on it.
Correct. And I see Rico's message to you. And it's... But, on the other hand, thinking about it, that might have been part of the negotiations to get him over. I mean, he's clearly not going to be getting or maybe he is, but I highly doubt it, the same numbers that Paul is getting as far as number of years and amount of money. But when you throw on, hey, you might not get that, but your name's going to be on the Destroyer, and those are going to sell, and that's going to make you X amount of money, that's also a negotiating tactic that Innova has that they can easily swing around, so to speak, in order to pull players onto their team.
Well, I did reach out to Ricky. I really honestly thought at some point we would catch him tonight and have a conversation with him, and he's welcome to still join us, if you will. I also had exchanged a few conversations with Sarah Holcomb. A lot of people are wondering exactly about the details of Sarah Holcomb and where she's going. I know I have a pretty good idea, but I didn't want to say anything publicly, and she more or less knows she has an open invite here to discuss it over here at Smashbox. But as of, I don't know, a few hours ago, I still hadn't seen any announcement. I really thought it would come out today. I know she had talked about waiting until the beginning of the new year, but we have not seen any official announcement. I think she's waiting on the new sponsor to make the official announcement as opposed to just her personally. But either way, it's good to know that people are excited to find out where our 2012 Women's World Champion is going to be going.
And I'm seeing up at the top of your Facebook feed that we saw Madison Walker re-signed with Innova, and she's been moved up to the Star team. So that's a very good thing. So you can look at getting her discs with her signature on them in order for her to help sponsor and promote her.
Yes, some exciting news from the Walker camp. I know she was in some negotiations with them, and she's worked really hard both on and off the course with some of the extra things that she likes to accomplish, helping out at places like Edge Village and those types of things where she really thrives and enjoys doing stuff from educational standpoint as well. All right, we're seeing if we can
Sarah
get Steve.
Holcomb's on the board. Hi, y'all. Hi, Sarah. We're waiting. As soon as an announcement is made, you know where to come. Or if you'd like to make an announcement here, you know we're here.
Or we're just going to start making stuff up.
Oh, we can make stuff up. Sarah Holcomb, now sponsored by Home Depot. Just in general.
Is she more of a Home Depot or a Lowe's girl? Sarah, you can answer that on the board.
I've seen her on the dance floor. I have seen her get Lowe's, get Lowe's, get Lowe's. But come on.
I mean, there, Johnny.
You set me up. I could not take that. No, it's that's a unknown. We'll ask Sarah next time she's on. If she's a Home Depot girl or a Lowe's girl. Maybe, I mean, if you're local, you could be a Menards. We have a nice local one here in town.
Big money there. So Sarah's on the board, though, and she does say, I wish players were allowed to disclose for the sake of the players. And that was a conversation we've kind of almost beat to death, but that's exactly it. Johnny has, of course, said he's been very much in favor of disclosing all of the details and having them all out there because that will maybe force the hand, and it will help the players among themselves figure out exactly what they're worth and then maybe negotiate their contracts accordingly. And I've always said, I understand from a business perspective, on the manufacturer side, they don't necessarily want all the players publicly. Maybe it's not just the players, but even just the general public. Because could you imagine if, and we'll use two examples from today, and Adam Hammes announces what he gets, and an Alex Geisinger announces what he has. Those two are friends, so maybe they openly have already discussed what they're each getting. But if the public knew that there was a discrepancy between their two contracts, maybe the public would have a different perception of it. So those are all the reasons that I'm guessing that they're not openly discussed more often.
Yeah, I think it's a big open secret amongst a lot of the pros.
Of course.
And as I've always said, I think it helps out other players to make it disclosed. As you have said, it does not help out the manufacturers by any means. So,
all right. Sarah says, just as an update, everyone, this will be a podcast question sometime later in the future. She is a Lowe's girl. My dad used to work for them, and apparently it was it must have been a good experience, and that she still wants to be a Lowe's girl. So, well, there you have it. This is what you came here on the first of the year for, the breaking news, whether Sarah Holcomb is a Lowe's or a Home Depot.
Well,
all right.
Now we know. So what's Steve's?
He's saying he can't handle this, and he's got to use his lady friend's phone, and we'll see if we can get it to work for him.
The question is, which lady friend? We all know how Steve rolls.
I
love to just really set him up. Steve's a good friend of ours, and it's fun. It's fun. Oh, he was. I mean, it's a good thing I don't see him until every 2 years, because And when I see him, he's usually had a few drinks, and it's all hugs, and he'll forget that I said that. Don't worry.
Sure.
Otherwise, he could just dispose of me in some concrete. It would be not too hard to hide.
No, that would be a good idea. So yeah, and again, we don't have Ricky here, but one of the questions, as you alluded to, is Ricky's video today, which of course sparked some conversation. We'll start here. Do you care at all that it was released at roughly midnight California time, Pacific time? Does the timing, does the exact timing matter to you?
No, not at all.
I mean, some people were really bent out of shape and thought it was silly that it was released in the middle of the night on New Year's, as some said, when they're too plastered or it got buried.
What
Do you
does
feel
it
like
matter?
that was any kind of a misstep?
Does it matter if it was done at that point or at 8 a.m. today or 12?
Some social
PM?
media experts would say yes.
I don't think it matters for this particular instance. I think it's going to get the same type of play. It's going to get the same type of production, and it's going to go. Now, Steve right now is working on getting it set up, so we'll hopefully have him in a few minutes.
So Ricky's video announced he came on. He talked a little bit about really his story about getting involved and taking disc golf more seriously. He talked about something we heard earlier in the year way back at the Memorial, actually, in terms of him botching some of his baseball hopes and dreams in order to then not make the team so that he could further pursue disc golf, because his dad wasn't necessarily on board with the idea of him continuing his disc golf in a serious nature. But it was essentially Ricky talking, kind of narrating the story, telling you about that, and then obviously announcing that he's returning to Innova. One question asked on the Dixon Jowers Facebook page was, did you have any strong opinions about the release, that video?
The release of the video? I mean,
the content.
Here's another thing I'll say about the timing of it. Depending on, it was released midnight Pacific?
Sometime around there. Yep.
If anything, maybe that's just a hair late. You release midnight around Eastern time, you might have way more people online because people are watching their phones, New Year's, and all this other jazz. But as far as the content of his release video and the style, it wasn't the worst one I've seen. We've had 5 or 6 release videos, people talking about where they're going. I thought it was fine. I didn't have any issue with it. It was very Ricky. It was subdued. It was I was gonna say stylistic, but not. I mean, it was a specific style.
Yeah.
It was way different than there was no lead up to it. There was no teaser, as we've seen from a couple other ones. It was just, hey guys, this is why I'm going to Innova. ... And that's great. And we saw he got the he got the Raptor Destroyer now. So.
Yeah, and maybe somebody can clarify out there what I was, I guess, hinting at earlier, talking about, is that a special release? Is that the stock stamp that we're going to see on the Destroyers for the foreseeable future? Is that a special run that was done? I'm curious to know a few more of those details, really just from kind of a collector perspective more than anything.
I bet
I'm guessing the actual disc has no genetic
changes. It's gonna be the same thing that you picked up a month ago is the same thing you're gonna pick up in a month. It's probably the same run, but I think I may have heard something.
And real quickly, reading from the board a moment ago, Sarah had said that she liked Ricky's announcement, saying that it was sweet, and then I couldn't read the rest of it, but more or less saying that she liked it. And we can compare and contrast, because we're going to see Sarah's release video here coming out any day now. So, all right. Well, I think we've got them all set up. We're going to get a few things situated on our end. Make sure he's all queued up and in frame. Big celebration last night. Some of the world might have cared about ringing in 2019. This guy was, all he cared about was ringing in his 40th. Steve Rico Legacy Disc. How we doing, buddy?
Happy birthday to you, Master. Happy birthday.
Oh, my gosh. You don't look a day
over 38.
No. Looking good, buddy.
Dude, I feel 29 years old, bro. So
yeah,
thank you guys for having me.
Were you saying that this yesterday when you were out there pouring like 50 yards of concrete? You still felt 29?
Oh, absolutely, bro. Concrete's easy. It's all the other stuff that'll wear on you.
All right, so I'll ask, leading off what Dixon just said, what's easier, pouring 50 yards of concrete or contract and sponsor negotiations as a manufacturer?
Oh, I'd rather pour concrete all day long.
Yeah, no easy task. I mean, Steve,
it's a lot.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. It's a lot to do. Everything that that Dixon was saying is pretty spot on. So, yeah, pouring concrete is way easier.
So you have one of the most unique perspectives we could ever ask for in that you started very young when you were only like this tall, and you've been playing disc golf at a high level. Of course, a breakout star when you were just a teenager. Sponsored, I talked a little bit about that Innova and Discraft kind of rivalry for many of those years, and you were throwing some of both plastics and sponsored at one point. And then you take on that role of becoming ultimately an owner and a manufacturer, and now you're on the other side of that contract. You're deciding what are you going to offer someone? How many years is it going to be for? What kind of value and return are they actually giving your company? Because you can't just give away everything for free and not expect some kind of return. How in the world do you attack or look at contracts and sponsored players these days?
Well, back in those days, there was only a couple companies, and the contracts back then were nothing like what they are now. Back then you kind of had to earn your way to get those big contracts. You had to prove yourself, on your play and that kind of thing. Nowadays, it's way different. There's the tours are better, tournaments. There's so much stuff happening out there, and players are evolving a lot quicker nowadays than back in my teenager days. So now you got upcoming stars, and they want to get compensated, entry fees, and they want a salary and that kind of thing. And it's tough to put a value on what some people are worth. Nowadays social media is huge. If you're out there and you're doing a lot of social media and you're playing well, that's a big thing. So it's tough to put a value on a lot of that stuff. There's guys now that are, they're up and coming stars, but do you pay somebody on just assuming they're going to be great? It's tough to put a value on that.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, listen up, kids. Pre-internet, things were very different, because now a well-known player could say, hey, I got a run of limited edition signature series discs. They literally came off the stamp machine 10 minutes ago. Here's 500 of them. I'm going live for 10 minutes. And just like that, 500 Frisbees sell literally within minutes, depending on who you are.
Well,
that didn't happen.
When I was a kid, you had to win a world championship to get your name on a Frisbee.
That too. So it's just such a different world, obviously, and you're trying to navigate through all of that. I don't want to say who messed it up, but is it fair to say that prodigy of 2013, did that really shake up the game from the manufacturing and the sponsored player side?
I think so. Once they came out pretty strong and with the way they did things, that kind of set the standard. And now everybody wants to get compensated for being a touring pro, and now that's like the normal thing. And now Paul leaving kind of gave everybody, a guy like Paul leaving made it okay for everybody else to leave. You know what I mean? So now that could be the normal thing now.
Yeah, and that's got to be really tough because you're trying to build a brand, and we've seen, I think, of a lot of our companies, not just Legacy, but a lot of them, especially the smaller ones. You have to take, to some degree, you have to take a chance on a player. You're, like you said, hoping that they become good, but then at a certain point, if they become either too good or too big, they may start looking for demands that you as a smaller company can't necessarily keep up with. And then you're faced with an even tougher decision, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's a tough game nowadays. Players are just going different places and they're doing what's better for their career. And this year's been a crazy shakeup with all the different companies out there. But that's kind of the thing now. The sport's getting bigger and it's starting to get on that level now. Like you see, professional athletes playing basketball. They're going to a different place that's better for them, and the money's better, and that's kind of how it's going now.
Now, one of the things I asked Dixon when we were talking about seeing all these players move, it seems like, a Latitude is trimming, and Innova, for the most part, it feels like they've trimmed down. Discraft, obviously, feels like they're bulging and, massively expanding. What is Legacy's, approach, and how has it changed over the years? What are you guys thinking about when you're thinking about either adding or subtracting from the team? What's the thought process that's behind that?
Well, this year we had some players leave the company to go better and further their career. We reached out to a couple different pros, and we got declined from them. And but for us, pretty much taking the budget of the team and spending it inside the infrastructure at Legacy. More plastics, newer molds coming out, hiring on more help. We're now running 2 different machines now, so the increase inside the warehouse in our structure has gotten a lot better. So for us, that was important for me this year. If we weren't going to take on any big name players and add them to the team, then we're going to go this route and make sure the infrastructure in our company is a lot better.
And I'll say I love that approach. I think back a few years ago, people were saying, I'll throw it out there. We're saying, like, MVP, for instance, hey, when are you guys going to have a team? When are you going to sponsor some top-level pros? You guys are making, discs that are starting to catch on, that are really well-liked and are being purchased. When are you going to sponsor a team? And then they kind of dipped into that when we saw them work with Matt Dollar. He was kind of the first big name that they attracted and secured. It has to start at home, though, right? I mean, it has to start, like you said, with that infrastructure, because you can throw a lot of money at a lot of players, but if you don't have the product to back that up or the product to expand with, players are only going to get you so far.
Right. And, we have a lot of great players on the team now. Nick Newton is our high-level player now, and me and him are going to be doing some touring this year. But we do have a lot of great players. I know some of them are going to go out on the road and play, and I'm going to try to do as much as I can for those guys. And like I said, if the infrastructure is good in our warehouse, so we can pump out new product all the time and get these guys some signature series discs and keep them going on the road. That's my focus right now, and that's important to me.
Wait. Is this 2018 or 2017 or 2016, 2015? Did I hear you say
He's
going
on the road?
Come on, I've heard this before, young man.
I'm going to hit the tour stops. I'm going to, this and that.
I'm going to get out there more. I'm not going to be in the office working and laying concrete. I've heard this before. Steve, are you going to make our dreams come true and you're going to be on the tour more?
This year I am. This is my breakout master year. So I got to take advantage of going out there and playing a lot of these big events, at least all the master majors. And, I think I'm going to play Masters in Vegas. I'm going to go back and forth all year long, but this is a good year for me to go out there and make a difference and try to get my world titles and get some big wins out there, to not just for me, but to better the company. And I want to be out there touring and playing at, what good few years I got left.
You got a few more than just a few, but we'll
Well, I still want to be competitive in the open division. I do want to play against the best players in the world. I know the Masters they're great players out there. I'm not dogging on any of them, but I still want to be competitive with all these youngsters.
Which is obviously becoming more and more challenging every single year. They somehow keep getting younger and throw further, and
the courses get longer, and
so
it gets tougher and tougher. But I'm up for the challenge.
What do you feel like will make your decision as to where you're going to play on any given weekend, division-wise? Like you look at one tournament and you say, oh, that's definitely a Masters event. and then maybe the next week in a different state, you're like, nope, that's going to be an open event. What is going to determine which way you go?
I think a lot of the course designs, all these courses now that you're playing on regular golf courses and you're just throwing giant bombers down fairways and you got all these bunkers and greens, and I'm not a big fan of that kind of golf. It's pretty much for the big arm throwers. So I might be playing a lot of Masters divisions in those events, but like in Arizona at the Memorial, those courses are pretty they're pretty fair to everybody. So I'm gonna be playing open in that event.
Okay, and then are you concerned at all about the tour affiliations? I mean, are you concerned about what divisions you're playing and where you're going to be at in, say, the national tour or the pro tour? Will any of those, be part of your decision making? Like which division? Because they don't offer, pro masters at the, in the pro tour, for instance.
I think, I think Waco is, after the Memorial, and I think they have like limited spots of masters that are going to be able to play that event. So something like that. If it's a small masters field, then I'm just going to play open.
Okay. So you mentioned Nick Newton, and I know you got a lot of great guys and girls on the team for this upcoming year. But Nick, I met him a few years ago, San Diego area originally. Is that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yep. So you guys, are you guys going to get a van? You going to have Lisa Fakis or Paige maybe come deck it out for you, or Sarah Holcomb give you some tips? What's the plan?
Yeah, maybe I will. No. Yeah, we're gonna have a van, and we're good at construction, so we'll get it all decked out the way we want it to. But yeah, we're gonna be going out there and running some confidence clashes, some clinics, meet and greets at pro shops and that kind of thing. So we're gonna be pretty busy, not just playing tournaments this year. We're gonna be doing a whole lot of different stuff as well.
Now, I know you've really struggled throughout the last few years with when you want to go on tour, and I've seen you with a Bobby Music or a Josh Anthon and some of your other friends out there. You go out on the tour, but it always feels like your head maybe and your heart a little bit remains back at the shop. Those guys are working and grinding, and they're doing concrete, and then they're in the shop at night. How are you going to be able to separate those feelings? How are you going to make sure that you're staying mentally focused on the golf when you're trying to commit full time to this tour?
It's tough. It's been really tough in the past. But the company, like I said, it's really growing, and we got a lot more focus on our infrastructure. And that right there, I think, is going to be very helpful. Ease a lot off my mind and my brother's mind as well. We're going to have a lot of help at the warehouse. We're running a couple machines. We're going to be pumping out a lot of product now. We got everything pretty much how we want it to go going into this new year. So it's going to allow me to go out there and promote and do things out on the road that I haven't been able to do in the past since I've been in the office most of the time. So I'm going to be out there promoting, not just playing, but bending the fly marks and just doing a lot of the PR kind of thing.
You're talking about promoting, and people on the board are asking 2019 for Legacy, new molds, new plastics. What can we expect to see from the company this year coming up? Can you, if not break some news, could you at least throw some hints at us?
Well, I have the Recluse getting released at the end of January. That's our newest overstable mid. And then my whole Pinnacle lineup, we're going to open up all different Pinnacle putters, Pinnacle Pursuits, Pinnacle Enemies. I have to open up the whole Pinnacle line that's been just in Icon for quite a few years now. So that lineup's going to open up. And then also we're working on some new molds that'll be coming out probably in the middle of the year.
All right.
Which means a little after that, right? Isn't that the joke?
Well, another 6 months.
When they want them to come out and when they're perfected are two different things, Terry. You don't tell a chef when to pull it out of the oven. You let them test it. You make sure.
Once it's designed, and then you're tweaking the plastics and seeing what the plastic part of it is always a mystery. You never know. Some plastics run better in certain molds, and that's just kind of science that you have to figure out as you go.
Well, and we talked about it, I think, a year or two ago when you guys had brought your production in-house and you were actually molding your discs at your factory, which, believe it or not, quite a few of our manufacturers or disc companies still aren't doing. I mean, you think of even someone also on a larger scale in Discmania, they don't have their own molding machines. Innova molds for them. But you guys are molding in-house. Have you? I know it's tough, and there's always intricacies, but do you feel like you've really gotten that down? Is getting that molding machine up and running, and then running it consistently for X amount of time? Is that something you guys finally have a hang of? And tell people, how tough is that?
Gotten a lot better at it. Nothing's perfect. I mean, you can run one day, you can run cannons one day, and then run it the following week, and your weights are thrown off. It just changes. It could be the plastic company sending you different material. Could be the weather that week compared to the week before. There's a lot of different science that goes into it, and as good as we gotten at running the machine and getting our plastics down, it's nothing's guaranteed at all. So it's tough. It's really tough. And it's that's why a lot of companies break off from other companies. It's tough to do it on your own and go through the learning process, and figuring all that stuff out just takes time. And that's why we put out product, but it takes us a little bit of time to put it out, because we're swamped with different things, not just pouring concrete, but running a machine and running plastics and experimenting. That all takes a lot of time.
Well, and we haven't had you on the show since it happened, but I couldn't say enough about what you guys did when it came to your Christmas. You guys went live in the warehouse with Christmas, and you guys were running around, and I saw you in were those your pajamas? No, that was an elf suit. One of the two. I saw you and your brother running around, and just truly enjoying the moment and taking that all in. Talk about that legacy family. I mean, not just you and your brother and then everyone that's in the shop, but just the legacy family of consumers and of supporters of the company. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, it's awesome. It means the world to us. We take it to heart. We thank everybody out there for their support and and everything they do and believe in our company. It means so much to us. And it really is truly a family feeling thing. And the word family gets thrown around a lot nowadays with different companies, but I really feel like we get supported a lot, and all these different supporters are our family. So it means the world to us.
Now, as you're moving into this first year of Masters, I feel like you maybe at one point had a response that I even heard out of an Avery Jenkins in the last few years, where like, yeah, when I get to Masters, I don't even care about that age rolling around. That doesn't concern me.
I
won't
play in Masters.
I don't need to play there. I don't need to mess with those guys. My skill sets belong in open. Seems like you've softened on that stance.
Rightfully so.
And rightfully so. I mean, why do you feel like that's you've had a change of heart there?
I don't know. And I was one of the guys that always said that I'd never go to Masters. I'm going to play open until I die. But I don't know. I just had a little bit of a change of heart. I'm still going to compete in open, but now I get a chance to go and play Masters. There's a lot of great Masters out there, Masters events out there now. They have their majors as well. So, why not take advantage of it and go and play on the Masters tour and compete in the Pro tour and just kind of go back and forth, and if I'm playing at a high level, then I'll stay playing open, but at least I have the option to go back and forth and see where it goes.
What event would you say you're most looking forward to? Like when you think about laying out this 2019 schedule on the Masters side, what event like just, puts a grin on your face?
I think Vegas. That's going to be my first Masters event right there. It's a big field, a lot of good Masters playing it, and I get to test the waters right there and see where I fit in that whole lineup, and compete against a whole different bracket of players that I'm not used to competing with. So for me, that's what I'm looking forward to, that first event.
Well, and speaking of different bracket, I mean, you've been around the block as long as anyone. there's not going to necessarily be new names, just maybe some names you haven't competed head to head with in a few years. And by that, if we see a Climo, which I'm not quite holding my breath on, although I know he's feeling better, but a Climo, a Schultz, a Patrick Brown,
Johnny.
a Johnny McRae, a John Baldwin, a Shasta Chris, a Don Smith, all of those guys, just right off the top of my head, are a few of the Masters and eligible, and Eric McCabe and Avery Jenkins, all those types. I mean, you've got history with all of those guys.
Yeah.
Was it going to be a little? Are you going to be the little?
Is it a reunion? Is it a little fun reunion?
Like, oh, hey guys, I'm here now.
I always hear from the Masters that it's a lot more chill and laid back and that kind of thing. I don't know. I'll have to find that out. All those guys you mentioned are all good friends of mine, so I'm sure we're gonna have a good time out there. We're gonna also want to beat each other and be competitive, but it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good time, and we'll just see how it goes. I can't wait to actually get out there and play with them, all of them.
Is there anyone in the open field that you haven't played with that you are excited to see in person? We've got a lot of young guns, and you've been on and off the events for the past couple of years. Is there anyone you're looking forward to seeing play?
I'm really excited to see how this year's going to turn out with everybody throwing different plastic. To me, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. It's going to be some advantages to the guys who actually stayed, and I think some disadvantages to guys who switched. For me, that's kind of what I'm excited to check out and to see how it all develops.
Is there an event that, I know you just said you're looking forward to Vegas, but is there an event that maybe eluded you in the open, something you never could quite take down, and your chances might be a little better, maybe not? I mean, again, you're going to always have stiff competition, but is there an event where you're like, now's maybe the time I'll claim a title from that course or that event? Is there any one of those?
Nothing in particular. I know I have the U.S. Masters and the Masters Worlds now, so I'm kind of looking forward to going out there and playing those courses, and I know I'm going to be doing that loop again to play in the Open division as well. So, I'm looking forward to going and playing the Masters Majors.
Okay, no, it's really exciting. Masters Majors, some areas you're familiar with, and that we'll be heading up to. The Smuggler's Notch area, obviously, up there, and then also on that northeast or the east side when we head over to Maple Hill. Maple Hill. I've heard some conflicting updates as to whether Pyramids will be involved or if it'll just be Maple Hill or Maple Hill and somewhere else. But either way, Maple Hill, a place you're familiar with, a place you've performed well at and had a good time at in the past as well. So. It will be exciting to see where else you venture to. Now, roughly sometime last week, I think we saw some of the new majors announced for 2020 and beyond. Was there anything that jumped out at you in seeing that list? I don't know if you even took a look at it.
No, I'm not familiar with that list at all. I did not see it.
Okay, well, you can go try and win all those. That'll be fun.
Well, let's see how the tour for 2019 goes before he decides he wants to tour in 2020. We might be back here in a year and him saying 2020 is the year I'm going to tour, guys. I promise.
So when usually, especially if you're already in the West Coast, usually we see something like wintertime, kind of officially, unofficially kick off a tour. If not wintertime, it's Vegas, then Memorial. Is that kind of your line of thinking as well?
Yeah, I'm going to do. I'm playing all three of those, and then going out to Waco, playing the Waco, and then some of the other events that are out there as well. Me and Nick were talking about it earlier tonight about the schedule. So I think we might be in Texas for a few weeks and then going to the GBO. I got to really dial it in and see exactly where we're going to be at what times. But that's the plan as of right now.
How much practice are you going to get in before wintertime, honestly?
I'm playing a lot right now.
Okay.
I'm working on a new form right now. So I'm trying to get it down and perfect it. It's, once you make an adjustment to your form, it takes some time on the field to get it all perfected. So that's what I'm working on right now. And, I got to put in a lot of throws to make sure I'm ready to go before this tour goes.
Legacy has been continuing to build all of the, your arsenal, all the different discs. Is there anything that you feel like is missing, or maybe that's just another way to word what's coming next? But is there anything that you guys feel like is missing in your lineup?
Yeah, there's a few discs. I know a lot of people have been asking for an overstable putter, and that's something that I definitely want to try to get out this year. And also a faster, pretty much like a faster rival, faster fairway driver. So something more along the lines like 9 or 10 speed.
Okay.
So those are two key discs I think we're missing. But other than that, our lineup is pretty solid right now.
What's the most underrated disc that you guys have? Something that maybe either didn't hit real well from a retail side, or just a disc that you really love that not enough people realize how great it is. What is there any disc that fits that?
I think the gauge. The gauge is a great mid-range. It's easy to throw for beginners and at any level. You can pretty much maneuver the disc and make it do whatever you want. You can hyzer it. You can also turn it over. It holds any line you put it on. And that's one of the discs that you have to be very smooth with it. A lot of guys, they throw it, and if it comes out with a little bit of wobble, they think it's a flippy disc, and right away they're like, oh, it just turns over. But that disc is really, it's really true out of the hand and the angles you put it on.
I totally agree. It has a somewhat of a shallow rim, but the stability is perfect in that you can manipulate it to do whatever you want. Like you just said, any angle, it'll hold it. You can throw with it, and I think it's just that. It's very easy to throw. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's a great disc. It kind of left my bag for a little while. Now I got it back in there, and I'm starting to work with it again. And it also has a tremendous amount of glide too. So that's something that if you have a mid and you want to get a little more glide or a little more distance out of the mid range, that disc will help you get that extra 30 feet.
Now, Legacy, of course, besides sponsoring a number of players, you guys are involved with events. If someone was a tournament director, a league director, or a local club president, or whatever it might be, what are some of the things you guys are doing in terms of working with sponsorship or people that are requesting sponsors, which I'm sure come in by the dozens every day?
Well, this year we've updated all our tournament packages. We have new programs for title sponsorships, fundraiser events, just limited stuff that we can do for a lot of the 8 tiers and above and that kind of thing. So there's a lot more options for us this year. Also, we have players packs that are pretty awesome. So all that stuff you'll be able to find on the website, or just reach out to us. I know we're going to be reaching out to a lot of tournament directors this year and doing a lot more and being a lot more involved with TDs.
Along with touring and playing, why again are you not joining me and going to Thailand? Did you answer that? Because it seems like you should be there.
I should be there. I've been invited to go the last few years. I don't have a really good reason for that.
The answer is always work. That's what the answer always is.
On disc golf and my company here, while you're out there having a good old time.
I'm just out on holiday, as they call it, just vacationing. Yeah, I'll just be basking in the on the beach, sipping Mai Tais. That's what I do.
I know. Yep.
Any international travel? I know that's like a whole nother level of challenge and hurdles. Do you have any plan for 2019, or are you just trying to run the U.S.?
Probably just more focused in the U.S. here. I'm not going to rule it out completely, but there's a lot going on just here in the States, and I'll probably just be focusing on just what's out here for me.
All right. So if people wanted, as you were traveling around, you're going to be popping up, like you said, for some clinics and whatnot. What's the best way? Should they be going out to the website, hitting a contact form? What are some of the things that they should do if they wanted you to, stop by or to be involved with something they have going on locally?
You can always reach out to all our contact information is on the website. Plus, I'm on Facebook. You can private message me there on Facebook. But we're going to be out there doing a lot of clinics, running some events, and not just playing. Like I said, not just playing events, but I'm going to be stopping at stores and doing a whole lot of PR. So yeah, you can send an email to the contacts. It's all on the Legacy website, or like I said, you can private message me on Facebook.
All right. Yeah, definitely reach out ahead of time as you're kind of putting together your tour. I think it'll be great that you have, the known stops, whether it's stopping in here for a club function or a league night, or you're going to be at this store or that store. I think as you piece together your entire tour, it's probably going to continue to fill up. So get at them as soon as possible. So non-disc golf for just a few moments. You turn 40. Of course, New Year's Eve is really just your birthday party every year, I think.
It's nice that the world celebrates.
Of course. What kind of action did you get into last night?
Not a whole lot, man. I took it easy. I just hung out with a couple of friends. We went out to Dave & Buster's, just had some dinner there, just hung out, just kept it mellow. That was about it. Didn't really have any big plans to go do anything. So we just took it easy and went out and played some golf today, and then got a couple rounds in and some practice in. So it was good.
And well, here you got a few hours left on your birthday out on the West Coast. Any big plans?
No. I got to be up and at the warehouse early tomorrow morning. So I'm just going to be taking it easy tonight. And probably catch a movie here and get back to the grind again tomorrow.
When will you finally take a breath and be like, okay, I'm logging out of work and I am hitting this tour? Is that the Wednesday or Thursday right before the winter time, or will you be able to kind of decompress before that even?
I think probably just before winter time. I'm off to Vegas, and then from Vegas to Arizona, and then after that I'll be in Texas. So, okay. But it never really slows down. I'm going to be always on the phone, on the computer, contacting the guys at the warehouse, making sure everything's good and going, and making sure our confidence classes are running, stopping at the stores and doing all this other stuff. So it never really dies down. It's just I just got to be more contact with the guys at the warehouse while I'm out playing golf and doing that side of things.
Now, we've seen over the last couple of years, you've transitioned into this idea of, fine, I'll wear my glasses. I'll put them on. I need to send an email. I need to send an invoice. Now that you're 40, are we going to see the glasses on or off during competition? Are those baskets getting any bigger or smaller?
Oh, man, they look really small right now. But like I said, I'm working on it. I'm working on my game. So basket will be getting bigger. I can still see just fine, except for when I'm on my computer. So I guess it just comes with age, bro. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out your game plan here. It's still pretty competitive out there, and I want to make sure you have every competitive edge you need.
You got me by a couple of months, I think, still. So
yeah. A few months and a few pounds, I think is what it is.
Yeah,
maybe just a couple, just a little bit. Anyway, all right, Steve. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Share with the world? Give any SmashBoxx exclusives? Something everybody else doesn't already know? I mean, we need a little insider info from our buddy.
That's pretty much it for the most part. If anybody's got questions, they can ask me now. But for the most part, that's pretty much it. The latest stuff from Legacy, the Pinnacle lineup, the Recluse will be coming out at the end of the month. You already know about my tour, and I'll be out there grinding. So, yeah, that's about it.
And you said you and Nick Newton, and along with all this conversation, I know we kind of already talked about sponsorships and teams. Would you guys say you're pretty much set, though, for, I saw some announcements. Tommy comes to mind, and a few others that I saw out there as well for their Legacy announcements today. If somebody wanted to reach out, are you guys kind of good for the year? Are you always sort of taking applications? How does that process work?
They can always send in applications. We pretty much got the team set for the year, though. But it'll be when I send our application for next year. or that kind of thing, you can go ahead and do that. But for the most part, I think we're all set now. We got most of the contracts back in. So yeah, I think we're set to go for 2019.
Okay, and I will read a question or two. I see Sean Hillman out on that West Coast. How you doing, Sean? He says, "Have you seen what they've done moving dirt out of Oak Grove? Have you been down to OG? Have you been down there at all lately?"
I was there today. I did play most of the holes. I didn't do like the very last 4 holes. I didn't play. I know they're gonna be taking out some holes down there in the wash, and I think it's a permanent thing. Johnny Tompkins kind of reached out to me about it because he's gonna run the Wintertime Open, and those holes that they're taking out, he's gonna have to replace them somewhere for the event. So he was a little bit worried about that. But yeah, I don't know exactly if that's gonna happen. I've heard it's in the works to happen within the next couple months, but it might not be happening before the event.
Okay, so some changes we might see over there at Oak Grove.
Yeah.
And that's great that Tompkins, wants to enlist the help of someone like yourself. Obviously, you've been there. How many out of this will be the 41st winter time. How many is this for you?
This will be 32 in a row for me.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Masters or open on that one?
Open.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yuli's on the board. Yeah, I've been instructed to ask if you miss him. You miss Paul Ulibarri?
Of course I miss him. We were texting the other night. Paul's a good friend of mine. Excited for him and his future. And yeah, I can't wait to see him. Miss you, buddy.
Nick on the board says, is Steve Rico going to be okay with the new caddy rule?
New caddy rule, huh? What is that?
Just talking about the caddies being an extension of you, and what actually
only
defines
having one.
Yeah, what defines having a caddy? I mean, I'm just gonna say you kind of roll with an entourage from time to time, and I think just the fact there's going to be one designated caddy, and there's just restrictions that go along with that. So,
I don't know. We'll just have to see how that develops. But I like to carry my own golf bag. I know Jared Dog's going to be flying in and out as well, and Jared Dog's always been my go-to caddy. So
very cool. I think I'd like to. This shouldn't sound weird or creepy, but I think I definitely want to get a little extra film of you this year. I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see you out on the tour because I know you haven't been playing on the tour nearly as much, and I think there might be some opportunities to get a little extra Steve Rico footage. So I'm looking forward to that. All right.
We're going to be.
What's that?
So we're gonna be hanging out a lot.
Okay, I'll go with that. All right. Well, it looks like that's most of the stuff. Some other chatter out there, but we're gonna let you go. We want you to enjoy your birthday. Paul Ulibarri just begging to get on the show here tonight. He's like, I don't know how I can follow up Steve Rico. We're like, well, you can't, but we'll give you a shot at it anyway. There's no following Steve Rico. Any
nice.
Parting shots? Anything you'd like to say to the world?
John, I just want to thank all the Legacy supporters out there. Like I said, it means a lot to me and my family, all the support you guys give us, and it's going to be a great 2019 season. So be on the lookout for some great things.
All right, buddy. Well, go out, enjoy the remainder of your birthday. Glad to have you in the 40 club along with Johnny V and myself.
Welcome.
All three of us 40 at the same time. That's just adorable. And we're looking forward to seeing more of you and Nick and the rest of Team Legacy out there on the tour this year, and looking for some really big things. We're excited about it.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Have
Thanks
a good
a lot,
night,
Steve.
Thanks, Master. All right, Steve Rico.
Throw that in there. That's not nice.
Awesome to hear. I mean, obviously, he was just one of the nicest guys out there on the tour, whether he's on the tour or he's back at the shop. And, one thing I was thinking about as we were talking to him, he handed me a Legacy disc in 2011. I played with Bamba during the opening round at the World Championships in Santa Cruz. Later in the weekend, I was handed, and we were all watching, and I filmed some people actually throwing some rampages or cannons out in the field after the award ceremony wrapped up at the World Championships. And to think about what they've gone through, to think about the growth, the trials, tribulations, everything that you have to go through as a growing, thriving company in disc golf, and to see and hear, as we move into 2019, again, where he's shifting focus, what's been successful, and then the hurdles they still have to overcome.
Yeah, they're still plugging away. I mean, it says a lot to watch a company like Legacy, friends of ours, friends of disc golf in general, be able to grow like they are. I mean, slow and steady, from having their discs molded somewhere else, bringing that in-house. Now, a second machine they're talking about, and just being able to sustain and steady growth is really it says a lot about them. It says a lot about disc golf, because we've seen companies come and go in the 5 or 6 years that Legacy has been around, and they're still hanging tough.
Yep.
New kids on the block I saw last night.
KOTV.
But one thing about 2019 or the end of 2018, everybody likes to do their lists. Everybody loves to have the top 5, top 10, this or that. We're no different. Well, we are. We don't really put a lot of effort into things. But Disc Golf Nerd, who works for doing fun stuff for us, he is going to give us his top 3 discs of the year.
What?
Yeah, he sent us a wonderful little video, and it's a good way to, we'll say, chime in the new year with maybe remembering what came last year. So we're going to take a few minutes, and while I go refill my water, Team Water, thanks Jordan Castro, and we're going to watch the Disc Golf Nerd video here. So sit back, relax, and listen to how Disc Golf Nerd likes it.
What's up, Smashies? With 2018 coming to a close, I thought it might be kind of fun to take a look back at some of my favorite molds that were released during 2018. Let's start it off with the Dynamic Discs Captain. The Dynamic Discs Captain is a long-range, far-flying distance driver. Really great option for the newer to average player looking to try out something in a high-speed range to see how it works for them. Not necessarily recommended for beginners, but for average players, this could be your farthest flying disc in your bag. Compared to something like a Trespass, it has a little bit more turn, a little bit more carry, a little bit faster, and probably a little bit less fade as well. I find this disc to be very straight flying, up to speed, and if you get it to start turning naturally and stand up and ride and come all the way back, you can get a huge flight out of the Dynamic Discs Captain. Really great distance driver for the average player. For bigger power arms, this would be a great long-range roller, tailwind disc, or for huge turnovers, but ultimately I think it's best suited for the average player looking to get a really nice, far-flying, high-speed distance driver they can use for max distance out there on the course. Next, we have my favorite fairway driver of the year, the Discraft Vulture. The Discraft Vulture is a really tremendous flyer. The thing that makes this disc really effective is its blend of stability and glide and distance. It's considered a fairway driver, but it easily flies into distance driver distance ranges with that nice glide and carry blended with that stability. It's rare you find a disc that will glide, hold the line for a really long period of time, and still have that really sharp and consistent fade at the end of the flight. It's something that you can release on Anheuser. It will work itself out, but it's not so overstable that you can't get it to fly, but it's just perfectly overstable to know exactly what it's going to do when it comes out of your hand. Really consistent flyer that has a great flight path to it. I think this would be a really great option for your newer player looking to try out an overstable fairway driver for the wind or for those strong hyzer shots, because it's not so overstable that you need a ton of power to get it to fly, but it is still really consistent and trustworthy in the wind and to hold that hyzer line and to have that strong fade once it slows down. And finally, arguably my favorite disc of the year overall, the Innova Star Rat. The Innova Star Rat is a flat-topped, overstable, small diameter mid-range, brand new on the market from Innova. It compares very nicely to the AVR X3. The AVR X3 has less glide, less speed, and definitely more of an overstable flight path overall, more fade and more turn resistance. The Rat ends up being considerably more versatile in terms of the different lines that it can fly. You can have it hold a turnover all the way, thrown with power, but you have to try to get it to do that. So you can throw it flat and expect it to just fly very straight with a gentle fade once it slows down. Also holds a hyzer extremely well, making it a really overall very friendly point and shoot approach disc. Has good stability, making it a very effective and consistent flyer, but it's not so overstable that you can't get a nice straight flight out of it overall. Really effective disc forehand and backhand. I think a lot of players will connect with the Star Rat. Really excellent addition to the Innova lineup. Well, that's it for my segment. Big thank you to Smashbox for having me be a part of the show. If you'd like to see the full review on all 3 of these discs, as well as many other disc golf related videos, just search for Disc Golf Nerd right here on YouTube. I look forward to creating a lot more content in the year 2019 and beyond, so stay tuned. I'll talk to you later. Cheers!
And welcome back. Thanks again, Disc Golf Nerd, for the insight in the top 3 discs that you loved here in 2018. We also do look forward to having more of your segments and updates in 2019 and beyond. So thank you very much for all of that. All right. As you can imagine, relatively light, other than all of the team sponsorship news, relatively light week in disc golf. So we're going to go ahead. We can wrap up the regular show right now, but we have waiting out there and super exciting, just chomping at the bit. We have none other than Paul Ulibarri,
That guy is busy.
He's got stuff to do.
Just
so busy.
many players now he's got to watch over.
Yeah, well,
got to tuck them all into bed every night.
Yuli's one Mad Tucker or something like that. All right, I think we can call it. So we're going to wrap up things here on the regular show. We'll move into the after show relatively seamlessly. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in Yuli, his role in his life as we move into 2019 from his perspective, of course, and then I'm sure we'll talk about more things that aren't necessarily disc golf related. We'll do a drawing for our Patreon giveaway. We will continue giving away free stuff each and every week to our supporters.
Well into 2019.
So look for that, and we'll also interact more from what we see on the YouTube chat board. So get your questions prepared so that I can reword them and then ask them as if I'm smart. But I'm really not. All right, so we're going to close things out. For Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's been podcast 228, the first one here in 2019. We're looking forward to an amazing year and bringing you podcast and live broadcast in the sport of disc golf. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SmashBoxxTV podcast 228
After show after 2018.
Showing, going, gone. All right, welcome. We are here just a few moments ago. We wrapped up the regular show, as hopefully many of you listened to. Dixon Jowers talked a little bit about what's going on in the world of, we'll say free agency and all of the team dynamics that are taking place among all of the different teams. So good to get a little insight. And if you liked a little college football, I'm sure he gave you some insight on that as well. And then we talked to Steve Rico. Had a similar but different conversation. And more importantly, I think we learned about how Steve is planning to attack 2019 and go out. And we're going to see a lot more of him on tour. And I love me some Steve Rico. I'm just going to go on record. He's broken my heart before.
I got a good feeling about this year.
Sure.
He is, it's getting late.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to make a commitment. He has a partner that he is relying on now as
Traveling
well.
with Nick Newton. Okay.
I've got a good feeling we're going to see.
Locked?
I think he's locked for at least the first 6 weeks of the season.
Okay. Well, I hope to see him out there as much as he said and then some. I know he has always been very torn. He gets on tour. he's gone for a few weeks, and heartstrings and just general business strings are always pulling at him back at the headquarters, back at Legacy headquarters. And he said they're working on the infrastructure, they're working on additional help and people. So hopefully some of that stuff can run itself, and Steve can just kind of dial in remotely and take care of the business that he needs to take care of. So hope to see a successful touring year out of Steve Rico, along with Nick Newton, of course.
Ryan Pilcher says, I never got the Disc Golf Pro Tour Patreon disc. Was waiting to hear something about it. Zach, did they nail? It's the Disc Golf Pro Tour Patreon disc. I thought you were talking about our Patreon discs, and those Dee Dee is currently out of the office right now. So once they get back in, I'm assuming it's tomorrow or the next day. Those will probably be
hopefully stamped or
shipped, and then we will we'll get those turned around relatively quickly. So you guys should see your 2018 discs. Hopefully,
before 2020.
No, we're gonna see them well before that. I'd like to see them like the third week of January if we're lucky. Yeah. So it all depends on Terry. They're gonna go to his house, and at that point, we'll see. But we'll get them going.
If there is in fact a Disc Golf Pro Tour I want to know if I'm eligible for that. I support the Disc Golf Pro Tour on Patreon. I'm not sure what value and above that counts for. I wonder if I got a Disc Golf Pro Tour disc. I think I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. Oh, maybe that was it. Oh, that makes more sense.
I could.
I got a really cool full foil, and I meant to bring it.
Oh, actually. the one that's looking down on the other discs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got one of those.
I've seen pictures.
I don't know if that was Patreon related or not. I didn't know if that just went out to general supporters or ex-live broadcasters. I'm not sure who that went to, but I got one.
I was going to be a Patreon supporter, but I brought it in-house.
There you go.
I'm just teasing.
See what you did there.
Do ya?
So hopefully if there is one that was sent out, hopefully people are receiving them right now. I see Hannah McBeth, one of our celebrity viewers out there, taking in the action. Hello, Hannah. Happy New Year. And of course, Happy New Year to everybody. We love all of our amazing live viewers. We love you if you consume the show after the fact through your favorite podcast or YouTube app. But we love our live viewers as well. So very cool. Joe Douglas on the board says, yes, it was the Patreon one. Oh, I had no idea. It's kind of funny. I should go back and reread. There was a piece of paper that came along with it, and it said basically, thank you. And I didn't. I was like, okay, I'm involved. I was involved, and I don't know who these went to, but of course I appreciated the very nice gesture. I had no idea, or maybe I just didn't read closely enough, that was related to being a Patreon supporter of the Pro Tour. So either way, thank you to the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Zach says, but why does it say full foil thank you on it? I think because they're advertising the fact that the full foil process is vibrant and colorful as it is through Discraft. So I think there was kind of a marketing play by Discraft's behalf as well as from the Pro Tour's behalf. Hence, that's why it said full foil. That's my guess.
More than likely.
Hannah says, did you two get new mics? Very snazzy. Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
No, these are our regular mics. I've had this mic since I believe the beginning. Terry had a different mic up until about a year and a half ago. Yeah. And then someone was saying when Terry talks louder, it seems to pick up on the second mic. That is true. You probably do hear a touch of echo there because we are relatively close, and no matter what mic you get, it's really hard to.
And I sometimes just like to scream out.
Yes,
that would be one way
I've thought about trying to turn it this way a little more, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Get your mic out of my face.
Yes,
I
can just disconnect you. I've got a mute button for you. Watch this. See, now Terry's muted. No, you're still muted. Really? Okay, now you're unmuted.
I'm gonna keep up on the board here for a second. Then we're gonna get Paul Ulibarri on here. Terry has a bigger filter. Thank you. I've been working out. What have you been amazing looking?
I worked out today.
It's not bad. There you go. Did you run from the police?
No, I did not run from the police. I ran on the elliptical while watching Avengers: Infinity War. So I got through a chunk of that, and I think I'll probably just continue to do that.
JW8 or J Wait says, with all the Masters talk, any plans to compete again this year, Terry? I don't know that I'll compete any more than I did last year. I may have a select couple of events that work into a schedule where I can. I don't necessarily plan to compete anymore. Johnny, on the other hand, he's right there with Steve Rico.
All ready to go on tour. I'm gonna call Nick, see if he wants to tour with me. No,
maybe you could be the Steve Rico replacement. So if Steve pulls off the tour halfway through the year, you could be right there ready to go and fill in.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that would be one way to do it.
Steve would have to pay me a lot. That's just
David John asked, why don't the Smashbox logos line up perfectly?
I think he's talking about the backgrounds.
Why is it more? Is it more crooked than normal?
See if you can see when I do this. It's just the way that the we've been centered. We had to cut and center, so they don't line up exactly. I could take off.
I think the booth looks. I think the actual backdrop is just a tad off center in itself.
But no one can tell. Maybe
I don't know.
I don't know.
Tough stuff here. Sarah Hokum's still out there. Sarah still hasn't announced. We're going to keep calling you out every 5 minutes until we know the official news of where Sarah Hokum is going. Any cool things for fantasy disc golf in 2019?
I've already working with my developer. We've agreed on pricing and stuff, and he's hopefully going to take the next couple weeks now that the holidays are over, and he's going to dedicate to that. As far as new things, then my number one goal is to hopefully accomplish what the number 3 and 4 goals were for last year, and that's get custom leagues out there so players, when they create a league, they can pick their own events. So if you want a local, we'll say Wisconsin fantasy tour with your own players, you can do that. So you want all the Wisconsin tour events, for instance, and you want to give yourself a 5,000 point ratings cap, you can do that. That's the number one goal. The number 2 goal is notifications, so that it'll look at when that event starts, and hopefully 24 hours prior to it, it'll send you an alert if you opt in that says, hey, guess what? Here are your picks, or you didn't make picks yet. Please do that, because that was the one thing that I was really hoping to get done last year that just didn't. It kind of fell by the wayside. So those are the 2 big things. There's a couple smaller things I'm working on, but I don't want to even mention them because who knows if they're going to happen or not. But yeah.
Okay, so there's some fantasy disc golf news and updates. Speaking of fantasy, this guy lives in my disc golf fantasies.
That's really creepy.
And as Johnny queues up, we'll reach out to Paul Ulibarri, and I'll briefly discuss that. I must think about disc golf too much. 2 mornings ago, I woke up in almost a fit of rage because I was having a dream that I was at a disc golf tournament, and a tournament director, I'll say, organized for a certain way for the groups to go out, and it was just absolutely stupid the way they had done it. And I'm arguing, and then on top of it, this tournament director gave out a product that you would assume to be eligible to be used. It wasn't a disc; it was something else, but you couldn't use it at the event, and it was kind of sold that way that you would be able to use it, but you couldn't.
And this is all in your dream.
This was all in my dream, and I woke up genuinely pissed off, and I was like, "All right, I need to take a break here for a few hours from disc golf." That I'm dreaming about these weird scenarios at a disc golf tournament for an event I wasn't even running, but I was there in some other media capacity, but I'm watching it all unfold, and I was really frustrated with the tournament director because it just didn't make sense what he or she was doing.
Ooh, that's kind of odd. I mean, it's been a while since you've been running events now, so
I know.
I can see.
I can still get all worked up about them.
Definitely get all worked up. Now, we have somebody who is going to be all worked up. Paul Ulibarri. I'm going to straighten out his camera here so we're all set. And as we've done about once a month, we like to bring on one of our favorite pros.
Maybe yours.
He is one of my favorite pros.
We love him.
He's at least in my top 20.
There you go.
Happy New Year.
How you doing?
Did you guys get new mics?
No, Hannah, we didn't.
Those are looking good.
Sounds like you need one, though. We'll get you a new mic. If you're going to be a regular, we might have to hook you up with a new mic.
Johnny, Johnny, you've been working out. Looks like you ran today.
I ran a full half hour. That was about it. Decent pace, like between 6 and 7 miles per hour. Just kind of watching video with the kids running around. My youngest daughter was looking at me,
Thinking you were crazy.
She's like,
Yeah,
"Why
because she's
can
like-
you do this.
yeah, she's like,
What
"What
are
are
you
you doing?" And because they don't see me do it very often. Because if I do it, it's usually before they wake up. But to be honest, I rarely do it. So it was. It did inspire them. I looked over a half hour, not quite a half hour because I was only on about 20 minutes later, and there's my daughter doing the little bit of yoga she knows next to me, and I'm like, hey, look at that. That's cool.
I got a buddy.
Yeah. So it was
inspirational.
It was.
When I'm looking for inspiration for my workouts in 2019, I'm looking to you.
You should call me.
I will.
Hashtag goals. You know,
Hashtag
2019 goals.
All right. So speaking of 2019, it's finally here. A ton of announcements. Some very predictable, some actually already known, some, assumed. But your feed, like mine, just inundated with dozens and dozens of team confirmations and announcements today, right, Uli?
Yeah, people going all over the place.
What are people lost? Are they crazy? What's going on?
I don't know if they're lost, but I definitely think they're crazy.
So, what does this mean for you, team captain?
Yeah.
Johnny claims you're tucking people into bed at night. That sounds reasonable, but what does that mean for you as a team captain as all these contracts are getting signed and announced?
Oh, lots more work, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you have to worry about? You concern yourself with?
Bob Julio, who's like, the current team manager, and I've been trying to help take some load off of what he's got going on and things like that. So I've been receiving a lot of messages from other team players and stuff and trying to hook them up with what they need or, new contracts, people wanting to get picked up, going through all those things. And so, yeah, it's been definitely busy last couple weeks.
What sparked this? And what I mean by this, a lot of conversation tonight about Discraft with this new aggression or enthusiasm to generate the team, the magnitude that this team is now. Obviously, you've always had great players, and you continue to have great players, but we're talking about a doubling or a tripling of team size and talent. What brought that all about?
No, I don't think it's quite that many. I mean, we're seeing they had a pretty big team before this.
Okay.
A lot of people who've been on the team for years and years and years, like back from, you have like, let's throw a name like Mark Ellis, who's been on the team for forever. They have a large, extensive team. Definitely picked up a lot of new players, but we're talking, maybe 20 or something like that, 20 new players.
A lot of high-level players.
Yes, high-level players, for sure. So you asked what sparked it. I mean, I guess disc golf sparked it, right? They were kind of in the ultimate game for a long time, and they really relied on that. And I think disc golf has really taken off over the last couple of years, and they saw that they needed to get, take a stab at it almost. And, Nate Doss carried the team for a long time with a lot of world titles and great play, and he kind of stepped back this year. So it was time for them to, make a step forward in that direction.
And a very large step at that. I know you say 20 players, but high level, recognizable level players.
Yeah, just looking at the list of people right now that have announced something, obviously Paul McBeth, Andrew Presnell, yourself, Chandler Fry, an extension in Trevor Harbolt, so he's been there. Alex Geisinger, Adam Hammis, Max Nichols, Austin Hannum, which was a surprise to me to hear that yesterday or today, and Dan Hastings. I mean, those are all.
That's like 10.
Yeah,
but those are for the most part relatively touring caliber players. You know, those are Discraft hasn't been known for that. They've been known for
Discraft
having
is a very large company, very large.
They for sure, and they've been known for having usually your more regional players that you're sponsored. But now we're looking at a more national team.
The game's changing, Johnny. The game is getting bigger. The tours are getting bigger, and that's something that I feel like with a company the size of Discraft, it seems really big, and it is, as far as like you said, the caliber of players. They picked up a lot of great talented players for sure. But like you said, before that they had regional players. So, you know, now if you put that compared to, like, let's say another team that tours around, you know, let's say Innova, how many people were on their team that actually toured? It's probably pretty similar now. So it's not like they made this huge leap into this tiny pond and now they're the lake. Like, that's not what's going on. You know, they're putting up a team that's going to go out and perform now, and it's going to be more in the public eye, which I feel like that's the plan.
Now, one thing that as we're looking, and I'm going to scroll down, we think of the extensions that we saw. Paige Bjerkes, no real surprise, extending with Dynamic. Katrina Allen, I think, had just made an announcement extending with Prodigy, no surprise. Paige Pierce extending with Dynamic, no surprise. Outside of Sarah Hokum, who's on our board and hasn't been able to quite announce exactly where she's going, although we have some ideas, a lot less on the women's side in terms of moving.
Sure.
Is there any, is that just what it is? Do you see any reason for that one way or another? I don't certainly view it as good or bad, but is there anything
I think it's
that
a smaller
draws you to
division, so I think it's a smaller division. And so you're not going to see as much movement in that area.
Just the pool of people are smaller.
We're talking about what, like 20 high profile altogether women players that might tour, and that might be an exaggeration almost, that hit the tour, nonstop. Like, how many are we looking at?
Sure. No, I totally agree. Much smaller. And I don't want to leave out Kristen Tatar, who I see on a list as well, who is renewed her relationship there with Latitude 64. I think, a side note, I think she also won a sportswoman or sports person of the year award of some type overseas this weekend. So pretty cool.
Something very significant, in Estonia.
Yeah, something very, very cool. So I don't mean to downplay it. I just didn't know the exact title, but whatever it was, it looked like a really fancy a ceremony that she was at. Her and Silver were there. So congratulations to her for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to them. But Holcomb, depending on if she announces with the same company or moves, that's definitely will be a big shakeup in the women's division, for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of that, as we think about world champions, for instance, we just mentioned the two Pages, Katrina all staying put. Val, I don't think you're going to see a lot of play out of her in general, as she's obviously so involved with Bevel, and you're going to see her as a Discraft team member. So Sarah being our 2012 world champ, you're exactly right. Probably the highest profile woman that's still in limbo as she's chatting with everyone on the board, which is awesome.
She says she's riding her bike right now while she's watching. So it's she's getting her workout in.
Wow.
And
she can ride it no-handed.
Getting a physical and mental workout in.
Yeah, listening
She's going to be
us.
coming strong in 2019.
Coming into 2019 strong.
Exactly. So a little non-disc golf here for a moment. How'd you ring in the new year?
Just with family, really. I got a new place here in Gilbert, Arizona, and so we had some friends over. I actually spent it with Wysocki and his girlfriend Sadie, and I had my mom over here and a few other people, and we just kind of relaxed. My brother, his wife, his son. We got a new ping pong table, so me and my brother and Ricky played ping pong until
that had to be pretty,
about 7 minutes
good.
Before New Year's.
I'm just going to say that had to be very competitive.
Yeah, super competitive.
Who won? Everyone knows Ricky is a phenomenal ping pong player, but I don't necessarily know if
we probably played, honestly, 30 games or something between me and my brother playing Ricky, because he pretty much won every time. So I think with me and my brother, we both got one game in on Ricky.
Wow.
Nice.
Now we're not. I was gonna say I don't want to spoil anything by any means if there's any special announcements, but of course you're very close with your brother. He's been with Prodigy. You've moved and transitioned from Prodigy. Is your brother staying the course there?
I think he made an announcement recently that he wouldn't be signing with Prodigy again this year.
Okay, I don't think I saw that. Okay. A
Yep.
little free agency action,
That
or
was
has he got another announcement in the works?
Last week, so I'll let him tell the world where he's going.
All
I
right.
can't wait for that teaser video. Can't wait for the announcement video.
I always keep thinking you guys need to have my brother and me on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. At some point,
Yeah.
I think it would only make sense. I mean, I think you're
Can't believe
optional,
that
but we should
happened.
definitely have your brother
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So little table tennis or ping pong action last night. Were some cards played, perhaps?
Not actually. Yeah, I think they were playing some sort of card game for a little bit, but for the most part, it was just fun and a little ping pong, and yeah, just a lot of good family time. So
January 1st, I'm thinking ahead to about 3 weeks and 2 days from now. I'm coming down to Maricopa, where I've filmed for the last couple of years. Super excited to come down to that event for the B tier. What kind of regimen or practice, or whether there's anything out of the ordinary that's going to happen for you or anyone else between now and then? Any other events or anything else, or is that where we're going to first see you this year?
that's my first tournament of the year, and no, I just got back from Christmas in Montana, so I was there for I think 6 days or something, and I was moving I was actually staying in Seattle for a few months before that, so I moved from Seattle back to Arizona. So it's been really busy. Plus, with all this stuff going on, my life's been pretty hectic. But I got back into action 2 days ago, practicing, and then got up early today and went out and practiced. So I should be doing pretty good. I'm hoping.
What's been your biggest adjustment? I'm guessing plastic wise.
Okay, so honestly, my biggest adjustment might be surprising to some people, but it's
Don't say your buddy.
It's not finding a flippy enough disc for longer shots. So, and what I've like tried to analyze like what's going on, like why is this kind of happening? Because I can find flippy discs with their lineup, of course, really great discs that flip, really hard rollers, whatever you need. They have an extensive lineup. But the type of flip that I'm looking for is like a later flip. And, I was with Prodigy for 6 years, and every disc that I got from them was a new disc, period, that they never had before. And so that was in my bag from the moment I got that. And, and I had that first one until the end. And I kind of kept my bag really simple with them. So a lot of my discs were the same mold, but flippier version, a more beat-in version, right? So, like, let's say right now I'm really loving the Nuke, and they have the Nuke SS, which is an amazing disc for if you want a really fast flippy disc. Now, the thing with that is if I hit it hard, it's going to be a fast flip, right? So it's going to try to get to the ground quick. So I can make corners with it or make it, late flip or things like that. But when it hits the ground, it's going to be faster. And I'm not used to landing my disc like that. I'm used to throwing it out and then letting it gradually flip, and then it's landing really soft.
So is that something you're going to have to maybe find a disc close and beat it in, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to take time. It's going to, I've spent some time at the Spinners used rack. My two best discs, I found a Wasp. It might be the ugliest disc I've ever seen. And I grabbed it off there just to see what it flew like. And it's just like a dream. It's perfect, like just straight, but it's just the ugliest thing ever, which is good because if I lose it, I know I'll get it back. So
that makes
but no,
sense.
that's
probably why I was in
that's
there in
been
the first
toughest
place.
Thing for me is because I don't know if a lot of pros or disc golfers in general think of the game as I do, as I'm not really worried about. I can throw a disc from here to there, right? And I can throw a hyzer from here to there, or a late flip from here to there, something like that. My distance control is good, and my timing's good. Like, I'm hitting gaps. I'm more focused on what my disc is happening when it lands. Like, that's where my focus is, because if I can control what happens after my disc hits the ground, then I know, I'm going to have easier putts, all of that stuff. I think there's a reason why a lot of the best players in the world don't throw a lot of skip shots, right? Because you don't have control over that. And it's actually kind of interesting to when all of us first started, like, throwing a skip shot into something was actually more controllable, because you're throwing like a stable disc and then you watch it skip and you can kind of skip it in there, right? I remember doing that a lot as a amateur. And now, if you watch the best players in the world, they're all throwing like high hyzer stall shots that as soon as they land, that's where it's landing. There's nothing happening after it lands, right? To where they have control, and that's what we're looking for. So with that, that's, I found out a couple discs today that I really loved. I found a crank that was, had enough flip on it and stuff like that. Putting's going good. The Mantis is like the best disc I've ever thrown. I'm loving that disc.
What do you love about it? How does it fly for you?
With the lineup that I was throwing before, I threw I think like a kind of a flippy fairway driver. And I really didn't have anything that like was stable enough, kind of straight enough. And this thing is going almost as far as my fast speed drivers, but holding a very straight line, which is something that, I haven't really had. I threw a lot of mid-range beforehand, and now this is really like filling in a gap that I almost never had before.
And then you spoke a moment ago of putting. What will you be putting with?
I have no clue.
What are you putting with right now?
Yeah. No, I've been putting with a ringer for the past couple weeks, and I'm liking that the most. I'm putting outside the circle with a focus for sure.
Okay.
That's one thing that definitely has made the bag. But I really haven't had time to practice the putting right now. The last couple days I put in the most time that I put in 3 months. So I think I played 3 XL layouts for the memorial layout pretty much like a few days ago, and I woke up, I couldn't even play the next day. I was so sore.
A lot of extra shots. Well, I'll ask you the same question I asked McBeth a few months ago, and I asked Kevin Jones a few weeks ago. What's the grace period we can give you? How long before we can no longer say, oh, well, he's learning new discs? I mean, give him a break. Like, at what point can you not use that excuse?
I mean, that's really kind of I feel like the player's choice. So if I feel like I'm not ready, then I shouldn't enter a big tournament, So if I'm signed up for the Memorial and you see me and I'm on the tee, then I'm going to be ready, right? Okay. I'm going to be ready. I'm not going to sign up, especially me. I've been known to be on tour and then leave because I didn't think I was ready for a tournament and stuff, and go back home and practice or whatever. So I feel like I'll be ready by the time the tour starts. As soon as they call 2 minutes, we've been doing this long enough to where, as long as I, obviously if I wasn't practicing and then I show up and I haven't thrown any discs and I'm like, all right, here I am, this one's stable, and I'm, trying to beat the best players in the world, I'm going to have some problems. But if I'm, practicing and out here training like I'm supposed to be doing, and then I sign up for the tournament, and as soon as they call 2 minutes, I'm going to get into my zone and I'll have the mindset that I'm there to win the tournament.
Okay. Well, and I'll be excited because hopefully you have all of that lined up and ready to go come out at the Maricopa event. Real quickly, I may not, we may not have you on air before that event in a couple of weeks. New course out there this year. I'm used to seeing the one specific course, kind of interweaved within that homeowners association. Copper Sky, is that what it is?
Yeah, Copper Sky.
Have you played there? Would compare, contrast? What can I expect?
I haven't had an opportunity to play there yet, okay. But I've heard mixed emotions about it, honestly. So I'm not sure what to, and I'm not sure that I'll even play the event. I have clinics set up that I'll definitely be doing out there, but if I'm not, I'm playing the Shelly Sharp for sure, which is a couple weeks before that. But if I, that's going to be like a tester run, that's on my home course, to where like I really know that track. And if I feel like I need more time to compete, then that'll be a nice little filler tournament. And
Okay. All right. Well, looking forward to it. What's been the biggest challenge with all these team people that you're interacting with? Dixon and I kind of talked about it a little earlier about when a new disc comes out, and even the little things of what it means to have all these sponsored players. But for you as a captain and as a go-to and as a maybe a mentor or a confidant or whatever it is, what do you feel like have been some of the unexpected challenges you've had so far?
I've done a little bit of negotiating with players who are trying to get on the team and things like that, and that's been a little bit difficult. It's Steve hit the nail on the head when he was talking about when he first came up, how it was different. It's just different. It's a different atmosphere. It's a new dynamic to what I'm doing. I've never had to deal with that type of stuff. I've always been the person trying to get things right. And so some of it's funny. Like I had a person who wanted, he wanted to get some stuff, and he was giving me the old, well, I might get like 30 discs from this, 30 more discs than what you're offering from this company. This guy's like, obviously I'm not going to say his name, but he's like 970 rated or something, and he's a good quality player. But he's like negotiating with me with like 30 discs, well, this person's giving me 30 discs. And so it's tough for me to measure that, because it's been so long since I've been in that position trying to get a sponsorship for discs or something like that. And, that's to somebody like a higher caliber of player, the discs aren't even a question, right? Mm-hmm. Like I haven't had to think about my disc allotment in probably 8 years or something. So when I hear that, I'm like, you're hounding me over 20 discs? Are you kidding me? Like your loyalty lies with 20 discs. And then I have to take a step back and learn from it and be like, no, it really is. Like that's a significant difference in contracts for this this kid. And then I have to weigh the things and stuff like that. So that's like a small demonstration of this, a couple struggles that I have to kind of take a step back and look at both sides, and instead of just kind of like giggling to myself, like, really, you're coming at me with 20 discs from this other company.
Well, and to be fair, something maybe you're saying, or what Steve said to me before the interview tonight, even, or him joining us, is you, as you've described, you have to listen on the phone or look someone in the face and more or less kind of tell them what they're worth, or agree that they're worth this or not that, or whatever. And Steve Rico was saying, you have people who are up and comers, maybe haven't proven themselves, maybe haven't played on the big stage. They're the top local advanced player, maybe they're the top local pro player, but haven't been on the big stage. And then they're coming at you, and you have to look at them realistically and say, okay, what are you going to provide back to my company? And here's where I put your value. And they're coming at you with a totally different perspective, like you just said, saying, I think I'm worth this. And it's like, if your world's apart, like any negotiating, that's got to be really tough to do, because we're a really, really small, subset of people out there. So
absolutely. And it's an interesting dynamic, because I've thought about this recently, that all I have to look at to see if you're a good player is your statistics on the PDGA, right? Like that's what I have to look at. So when you ask me for a sponsorship, then I go to the PDGA and I look at the tournaments that you've played. Okay, you won a couple tournaments, you got 19th at this tournament and things like that. But I come from a sports background, so I I watch basketball, football, I watch the draft, I watch the combine, all those things. And when you think about like recruiting in that sort of way, like these guys fly out there to watch this person perform, and then you have to impress this person, and then maybe you might get a scholarship, right? To where I'm looking at a couple tournaments on paper that you've played, to where, I've really been thinking about it, and maybe in the future we're going to have to be able to kind of go look at the player and watch him and see what kind of form he has, see what kind of putt he has, see if he can, like, what are his qualities and things like that, in order to get a bigger contract or something like that. And I really feel like once that happens, it'll make this job a lot easier, because if they don't perform, that's just is what it is. It's easy in baseball when the guy misses 3 ground balls in a row, and the other guy's sitting there and diving plays and these great, amazing plays in front of everybody, really trying to prove themselves. It's just an interesting kind of thought to bring into disc golf that I don't know if a lot of people even think about, because form's a big thing. There's plenty of people out there who you can look at, Terry, you can look at right away and be like, okay, you're a 980 rated player, and unfortunately you're going to be a 980 rated player for the rest of your life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the max out of what you're doing right there athletically.
Well, and here's my first free pro tip of 2019 for all the manufacturers, and you're a team captain and you already know this, but I kind of alluded to it last week when we talked about combines and, the seriousness of those, and will disc golf ever have anything of that nature? Right now, our version of a combine is the Bowling Green Am Championships. It's the Amateur World Championships. It's the USADGC, the Junior Worlds, of course. It's all of our high-level amateur events, and our manufacturers or representatives of them need to be at those events so they can see who that next up-and-coming person is, rather than just the person that won it. I mean,
imagine, it's just funny to me. Imagine like flying a kid out and being like, all right, man, let's see what you got. Fly him out, to the Discraft factory or something, and then just put him at like 30 feet with 10 discs, and just be like, all right, let's see what you got, man.
I mean, some of the stuff you can request. You could request video, like, hey, send me a video of your form. I want to kind of see.
Give me your video of your best shots of all time. That's what I think if I would ask that.
It takes you 6 weeks to make it, but let's see your best shots.
But I mean, you can't hide form.
And you can't hide attitude in fierce competition for only so long.
Of course. Question about sponsorship. Do you have kind of a set levels that you look at for these players? Like, hey, I'm a 970 rated pro. I'm looking to get sponsored. Do you look at your list and go, all right, 970, that is
check
50 discs every 6 months. Oh, you're a 980 rated player? Okay, then that's going to be 100 discs every 6 months, or whatever it is. Do you have set tiers?
There's definitely an equation that we use to kind of get the different teams, obviously. So, for sure, I mean, it's great. It's a crazy thing. Just like Steve was saying, like, there's also, other things that to me is so much more important than even just play. Like, if you're a 980 rated pro, right, and you kind of struggle sometimes in tournaments, but you're running tournaments and you're on social media and you're putting all this stuff, there's a crazy amount of value there, to where I almost think that guy is more valuable than almost 1,005 rated player who's cashing every time and winning local events, because that tournament director is going to get that product in front of everybody, and everybody, probably, and most likely he's going to be, running his tournament through Discraft and Discraft Disc and things like that. So, a really great example is somebody like my brother. He's a really good he hovers right around 1,000 rated for the last couple of years. He also runs 3-4 tournaments a year. He runs leagues. He's at the course all the time. To me, somebody like that is a lot more valuable than almost a 10-15 rated player out there, who's out there touring and stuff, because he's interacting with these people, which is something that a lot of these touring players actually don't do a lot of. Okay. They're in the tournament practice out of the tournament. You got to think that, what is it, Terry? You do a lot of interviews. There's 30 players that tour, right? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Out of how many of those players are you wanting interviews with? Are you, as an interviewer, being like, okay, I want to hear from this guy? There's 30 of us that tour, but there's only a select few that you even want to listen to.
Well,
And that's
I try to hide
truth.
the rest.
That's not me like dogging on anybody, but that's the honest truth, right? So these people are coming into a tournament because they're not. It's up to them, to come to you almost and be like, hey, Terry, I've been doing this, and nice to meet you. And then all of a sudden you have a relationship with this guy, and now you want to interview him and see how he did, or he has a good tournament or something like that. But now my brother's out there kissing babies and shaking hands every day every other day, running leagues and getting 30 people out there, and he's putting discs into their hands. You see the value there? It's crazy. It's a crazy difference.
Absolutely. And I'll even say I feel like that was somewhat of my in, a decade ago. I wasn't obviously out there
2 decades ago.
I wasn't out there, winning super tours. I was a decent player at one point, and Discraft at one point, Innova as well, saw the value in me as a tournament director, as a course designer, as an ambassador, and doing all those types of things. And I'll agree, there is a lot to be said that there's so much more reach that someone can have. And I think about even pros we had in Wisconsin. That's like, great, you could win every tournament we have here, but what are you doing to really help grow the brand other than saying, okay, thanks to so-and-so? There's more ways, more than one ways to skin a cat, and social media factors into all of this now. 10 years ago, we didn't have to worry about that.
And one thing that I really want to try to do this year is kind of, it's up to the manufacturer as well to help that player develop into his own brand, right? Mm-hmm. His own person. It's up to the manufacturer, for me, maybe even when I'm on the road, to be like, hey man, come over here, let's do an interview with this or something, just to get them in front of a camera so that you can kind of start developing that character so people can kind of know him,
Yeah.
I think AJ Risley is a great example of that. Someone who was a 970, 980 rated player, when he decided he wanted to really go on tour, but he got his face out there and he really kind of pounded the video and stuff. And now, you're looking at like a 1010, 1015 rated player.
He's a household name.
And he's a household name.
A lot of people know AJ Risley.
Because your people are going to be hard pressed to name 5 other 1015 rated players. But
Eric Oakley's another great example.
Exactly.
And I think he just went over 1,000 this year. But he really worked hard on clinics and things like that to get his name out there, and he's a very popular player, very popular.
How difficult, and I don't know if you've had to do it yet, will be negotiating contracts with some top pros? Because you being in that position, right next to them, when some pro comes to you and says, hey, I want X, Y, and Z, you sit back and think, well, I'm not getting X, Y, and Z, and I'm just as good as you. I beat you most weekends, or 50-50 or whatever it is, and I don't get that, but maybe you need to offer that to get him on the team or her.
Sure. No, and that's up to me to be, that's when I have to disconnect from me being a disc golfer and then take on that other role. I can't have my own, like me, like you said, oh, I beat you all the time. Like, how could you possibly be,
more valuable than me,
asking,
so to speak.
Yeah, more valuable asking that. But at the same time, when I can disconnect from that, because that's what they're trusting me to do, is to be able to take that role. I have to be honest with them at the same time, and then take that leadership role and tell them, like, listen, like, if you want that, these are the things you're going to have to do. It's going to take work. It's going to take this, this, and this. And if they can't deal with it, then they're not getting the contract. But you have to be able McBeth and Ricky and these great players, they're an exception. They go out there and win the big tournaments, right? They don't have to do anything to get paid. There's not a lot of people in disc golf that get paid monthly to play disc golf. Okay, those are the people who are getting a check every month to go out there and compete in disc golf tournaments. Those are your touring professionals. There's people that go out there, they're spending their own money, right? They're touring professionals, sure, but let's be real. Like, the people who are getting paid to do it as a job, who have to pay taxes, I hope they're paying taxes. Those are the people, you know what I mean? And so if the manufacturer wants to sign those people, then there has to be a clear, contract for them to be able to sign and be like, yeah, I can do all those things.
It'll be interesting to see how we move forward and where the emphasis are put on your social media presence, your play, your actual accolades, how many events you're playing. I know that gets factored in quite a bit. Your attitude on and off the course, extracurriculars, that type of stuff. Like you just mentioned, clinics, course design, tournament directing. Those are all different things that can be factored into whether you get a sponsorship nod above the next person that happens to be a good player as well, or if you're coming in more from an ambassador side. It's funny, if you think about it, you go back to what your parents would tell you as a youngster, at least mine, it's great you can get straight A's, but if you're worried about that resume or college resume, straight A's are great, but you also need to be in the glee club or the chess club or in the whatever, involved in sports, all those other things that help build your resume. I think it's completely applicable to disc golf as well. Just being a good player alone, unless you're the best of the best, being a good player alone doesn't guarantee you anything.
Right. It takes that little extra leap. A good example is my touring partner this year, Brian Earhart. He's going to be working his butt off in 2019 with a lot of different things, and he has a lot of responsibility. But to me, he's proven to me and to obviously Discraft that he can take it, and he's responsible, and he has, like you said, he has a resume before disc golf to where he had a steady job. He went to college. He graduated college. Those are things that I'm going to look at when I'm going to. I keep saying me. Sorry, Discraft is going to look at when they're putting this responsibility on the player. It's the whole thing. So stay in school, kids.
He also plays the ukulele and sings, and so he's won my heart over.
Like a bird.
Yeah. And then one quick point I want to touch on, though, is Hokum on the board said it a few minutes ago, and it's something that's definitely been on the tip of my tongue as well. There is the dynamic is kind of flipped on its head, and Steve Rico said this earlier tonight. Our players sometimes now have this, I don't want to call it an entitlement, but they have this notion of, please sponsor me or give me stuff, and then I'm going to go out and prove myself once you're supporting me. And it's like, that's still not how it works. Like, you're not given all of the benefits and the benefit of the doubt and all the goodies, and now you have to go make good on them. No, you have to make good first in whatever it is you're doing, and then hopefully it's recognized. And I worry that too much of our sponsorship, which has gotten a little looser throughout the years, too much of our sponsorship, people kind of feel like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to get supported by so-and-so, and then I'm going to go out, and then I'm going to go on tour, and I'm going to be, it's like, no, prove yourself. Just like everything else in life. Prove yourself, earn that respect, and then the benefits and the advantages should come after that, hopefully. No?
Absolutely.
No. I think you're 100% right.
You just want to be lazy and you just get a handout? Is that what you're looking for?
I think you're 100% right.
That's
I think the players, and I was just thinking of our local player who's now a Discraft sponsored, CJ King, who's been busting it on the Wisconsin tour for many years, now winning many of the Wisconsin tour events. Just recently, as of last year, gets picked up by Discraft, and he's not much on social media, but he's a very solid local player. I was actually thinking of a whole different line of question. So, are you running out of battery, Paul? Is that what you're?
Nope. I got it.
I got plugs. I got plugs. As far as a team manager goes, do you guys have social media
Guidelines, requirements,
not requirements, guidelines. And I think of one of your really good friends who stirred up some social media. A very, very.
What do you say?
Very
when you say
long
one of my
thread.
really good friends stirred up. That's every one of my good friends.
Mr. Coling.
This could be anybody.
Mr. Coling, who went out and made a political post, and I'm just going to leave it at that, which drove a very lengthy thread. Do you have any say in that? Would you address a player, or are you fine with players pushing out their personal agendas on their social media, or do you feel that should be more reserved, so to speak?
There's a fine line for sure. So I think Jeremy is a very intelligent person. If he has as far as that.
Is this
exactly.
Do I have to say SmashBox exclusive?
And his
that
thoughts
you're declaring that?
His thoughts are well calculated, especially if he's going to put something on the internet like that. I'm going to trust that he's not going to say something that obviously there's a difference between saying something super negative and then having a debate, right? And I think that that's it. That's the difference. Is if you want to have a debate and you have your opinion and it's a strong opinion, I don't have any problem with that. You put that on, do whatever you want. Now, if somebody's going to put a negative on there, that's something that, as a team captain now, that I'm going to definitely be like, hey, let's not put that on there. That's a negative. We can construct it a little bit better or something like that. We can word it different if you're trying to have a discussion, but I made a post, honestly, a couple days ago, right? And here's a perfect example. I made a post about Chris Dickerson and his 30 wins. And I put on, this is an amazing feat. Like I couldn't, when I looked at his statistics and I saw that he won 30 wins, which is 31 wins as of this week, because I saw on the PDGA that he won another tournament. 31 wins in a year is mind-boggling. That's more than I've had in 4 or 5 years. That's open win. So I put on there like, congratulations, something like that, to that extent. In the comments, a lot of positive, a lot of cool things about it. But then all of a sudden it got super negative and very.
Oh, we lost Uli. We'll try to work on getting him back. That could have been a Skype thing. That could have been something on our side.
We'll see if we can get him back in a moment so he can continue his thoughts on. And I'm only guessing. I saw the original post that he's referencing, saying that Chris Dickerson had those wins, and then I thought the only place that could maybe negatively got taken to is the fact that someone may be challenging the quality of his wins.
Sure.
Just saying, hey, he's won some, B or C tiers, or I don't even know if there are any worse C tiers, but he's not out on the road competing against in all the biggest tournaments. And Yuli, I was just speculating, did the negativity come about because somebody then started questioning the quality of those wins? Is that where that went, or no?
It did. It came from people question. I looked away from it for like 1 second. And then I looked back, and all of a sudden there was like 15 comments in this one little area. You know how that works. Mm-hmm. And it was probably like 10 minutes. I look in there, and it was questioning quality of his wins, questioning who he was playing with, right? The product that he was playing with, and all of a sudden it was taking away from what I put up, which was me as an athlete being like, hey man, props, this guy just did something unrealistic. And it's unfortunate that happens, but instead of me having a bunch of negative stuff on my wall, I had to take it down, right? And then I ended up messaging, or Chris messaged me and wondered why I took it down, and I told him, I'm like, hey man, congratulations on that. Personally, I'd like to just congratulate you because that's incredible. And so that's just like a small. So if somebody were to have something like that, then that's, I'd hope that somebody would understand even from this, that it's nice to be aware of those things. And I promised myself a long time ago on any of my posts that as soon as it got negative, A, I'd either take it down, or B, I'd block the people. so that I don't want anything negative on my stuff, because I'm not going to make a negative post, and for it to turn in that direction, it's just that I don't want that in my life, period.
Yeah, and that's really tough, because you're out there in the forefront competing, and I'll just make up, it's not such a made up example, but I'll think of another example. Someone like yourself could very, very intelligently and innocently say, make a comment about the railroad tie being missing or whatever, or absent at the Pro Tour finale, and almost no matter how you word that, no matter what, that's going to lead into negativity. There's going to be some that'll take a positive, upbeat, one stance and one approach, but there's definitely going to be a faction that's going to turn into negative, whether that was your intention or not. And,
right.
That's the nature of social media, so on and so forth. But it's just too bad, because no matter how innocent of a post or how, uplifting or rewarding, there's always going to be somebody, whether it's intended or not, that's going to then take that and twist it into something that it's, you weren't intending. And that's that's really tough about all social media, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go ahead.
Just to answer your question, social media is very important, and the material that you put out on social media is super important. You need to have and I'm 100% guilty of especially early on in my career, posting just kind of whatever I wanted, my thoughts in that moment, PDGA thoughts, world ranking thoughts, things that I just put on there just to, spark of discussion.
I remember one or two long posts.
Young Yuli.
Yeah.
Yuli posts.
And, that might be something that I wouldn't do now. But you got to go through it,
Yeah,
you got to learn, and things are different.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to call it a cop-out, but I always use the example of bumper stickers, and I always think, like, if you put on a political bumper sticker for any given party, you are almost always alienating about 50% of the people out there, and right off the bat. So what could be perceived as a small infraction or a small instance on the road, and all of a sudden it's the exact opposite political party of which you align with, and they have that bumper sticker on, you immediately, that really small infraction can turn into, serious road rage. And I'm not saying I certainly don't scurry or hide from all confrontation in the world or debate, but I just figure sometimes it's easily avoidable. And dare I say it, I think political bumper stickers are a great way to avoid confrontation. That's just me.
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff.
And I second guess wearing my Cubs sweatshirt tonight. I mean, anytime you wear it, I do.
My ugly Steelers sweater tonight. I was like, man, should I put it on? It's so ugly. We didn't even make the playoffs. This is embarrassing. And I didn't do it because I'm a wimp. That's why.
It's we went down, our family went down to Chicago just this past weekend to go to the museum, and I had two shirts I was sitting there with, and one was a Brewers shirt and the other was not. I thoughtfully chose the other shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I don't know, something stupid, and you're down there.
I don't
and
feel like having confrontation today.
Yeah, and I just, only because, even if it's in jest, someone makes a jab, you make a jab back, you don't know what that's going to turn into, and I'm very proud of being a Brewers fan and a Packers fan and a Bucks fan, and I'm a local sports guy, and that's what I am. And it's just, I went down there and you see all sorts of people wearing all sorts of, Bears jerseys, Badger, Brewers. It made me chuckle when I thought, I specifically just picked the other shirt.
Well, and it's funny when you're in that specific case, that happens to be a legitimate rival to it. Now, if you were to go to, if I was to go
to Pittsburgh wearing a Packers shirt, I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you have even if you're the same, this happened to me a couple weeks ago. I'm sitting there having lunch at this bar and grill, and I look out of the corner of my eye, and this kind of scary guy is coming straight at me, and I'm like, is he coming at, is he gonna come talk to me or what, what's going on? And he comes over and then he puts his hand up like this, like straight, straight to my face. And I'm like, yo, like, what's up? And I had my Steelers jersey on, and he goes, "Go Steelers!" And I'm like, oh, like, yo, like, what are you doing? So it's
that fraternity of all the team alignments,
these days.
political alignments, religious alignments, so on and so forth.
Well, and as you know, Steelers are that's an organization that needs you. They need some help. They need a team captain. They've got guys going AWOL.
I'll take over that team. Get Tomlin out of there, man. Can't stand that guy.
And Antonio Brown
needs to go.
Wait, what was that?
I said Tomlin needs to go. Tomlin.
Oh, yeah. You said that a few weeks ago. I mean, it's an interesting locker room right now.
I told you guys, I called it. I said they were possibly going to miss the playoffs, and we did. It wasn't possibly. It happened.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely needed some help that last week, and they did not get it from the Browns. No surprise.
Well, it's crazy. We blew it way before.
Yeah.
2 times, 2 minutes to go. Big Ben's doing his job, and then somebody, some Juju fumbles. That's where our season goes right there. Our season was lost at that exact point in time. Because in order to get past the Saints, like, that's a tough feat, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's that whole locker room right now is a mess. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but
what's that?
And I said we beat the Patriots. I thought we had a chance. I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. And then we just got smoked, and it was awful. And and of all people, Baltimore. I would have rather had the Browns, honestly. And my mom's listening right now. She was here. I kicked her out of my house. She was watching the game with me. I'm like, Mom, you gotta go. I can't have this. She's a huge Ravens fan. Sitting.
So you mentioned a moment ago that you're going to be that you have a place there in Gilbert, but do you see yourself coming back more this year? Little stints on the road, or making big loops and then coming back. What's kind of your plan in that regard?
It's a kind of up in the air. I'm gonna do what's needed of me. Okay. Obviously, with this first year on tour, like I said, I'm touring with Brian Earhart. So first few months are going to be me and him kind of getting acclimated with what we're doing. We're going to be doing some clinics, different things like that, some podcasts. Actually, that's one thing. We're coming out with a new podcast, Brian and myself. It's going to be, we're kind of up in the air with the name, but I think it's going to be The Buzz. Will be our podcast, and it's a little different than a lot of people do. It's going to be like more of a mental podcast of talking about the mental side of disc golf and what's mentally going through, what's happening each weekend. Maybe get guests on there with, people who might have performed bad and what they were thinking and how they can get past it. And, just different the mental side of it is something that's kind of untapped. Especially, I feel like with the younger generation of the pro side, they're out there practicing and preparing and things like that. And as you get older, you understand that you really need to quiet your mind and find different ways to get strokes as well. And so that's something that me and him are kind of preparing right now, and we're really excited about launching that, honestly, as soon as we can.
Well, if you need any help, let me know. I'm always here for any suggestions or tech stuff or whatever you need. Just holler.
Oh, we will.
When do you get nervous, Uli? On the course, when do you get nervous?
When do I get nervous? Down the stretch, it's actually a problem that I've had in my career. I have no problem in the clutch, right? So if I have a putt for the win, I can calm myself and I can make that putt. I've proved that to myself long time ago. I haven't missed a lot of putts for the win. So I know in that aspect that I'm a clutch player, as they would say, right? I can calm myself enough to shut it down. It's getting to that point that I've had a problem with in my career. I've never had a putt really to win a major or something like that. And I've never doubted myself that I can make that. It's leading up to there that I've found my body getting tight and things like that, because That's just the way, it's interesting. You have to figure out at that point how your body's going to react, because my body legitimately shuts down sometimes to where I get really stiff in my back, in my shoulders, and I've been really good about it the last couple of years and understanding when that happens and being able to calm myself down. But that's taken me a long time, and I feel like if I would have had that information long ago, that I would definitely be a multi-major champion at this point. But this is something that I've had to kind of learn by myself. I've had to read a lot of books. I've had to listen to a lot of mental podcasts. I've gone to a sports psychiatrist before. I've really worked on my mental game. I'm guessing probably more than anybody in disc golf at this level, possibly. And so I know the good thing about it is I know what my problem is, right? And I definitely know how to fix it. But in order to fix it, you have to put yourself in those situations again. And that's the tough part, especially now with how good people are. It's harder to get into that position, Ricky and Paul and Eagle right now, they're Simon, there's even Kevin Jones, you see him getting up in the mix a lot. But it's still kind of the same guys closing these tournaments out.
Do you recognize the symptoms when they're happening, or does it come after a couple holes? Are you like, oh God, I didn't even notice, like I'm really getting tight? Or
so I really felt like the World Championship was my tournament this year. I felt so comfortable down the stretch. I felt so comfortable in the middle, and it was the first tournament where I was never nervous. Like I was never nervous. I kept myself under control, and it was just a lack of skill that got me for the first time ever. Before, it was nerves 100%, but this time I was just off that day. My shots just weren't there. That's all it was. And knowing that, it gives me a lot of hope. So yes, I do recognize it, and that is great now for me, because I know when I get in that situation that I am going to be calmer than I have been in the past.
Well,
but yes, I do recognize when it's happening.
Well, and to, I think, further your point, the margin of error is so much smaller now. You need to win the Worlds, you can't have 4 good rounds or 4 decent rounds and a great round. You need to have like 5 great rounds or 4 great rounds and a 5th pretty damn good round. Like it's so competitive, where I think years ago there was maybe just a little bit more play, a little more leeway there. And right now, when you have 10 or 15 guys that could win on any given weekend, you have to be on all the time.
Right. So in order to win, I shot my best round that I rated that I had in 6 years at the Worlds that got me into the mix, right? And then I played solid after that. But in order to make a run at a major right now, you have to throw down a round. And we're not talking about the McBeth and Ricky, who this is their average, okay? In order to, and this happens in sports, in order to take down Roger Federer on the tennis court, you're going to have no mistakes and play your best game of tennis that you've ever played against the best player that has ever lived, and hope that he has an off day. Okay. And that's just the truth of the matter. Right. And until you can recognize that, like, you got a long ways to go in sports in general. Right. And it happens though. That's the thing. Those days happen all the time in sports, to where they get taken down by other players who had a better day. In disc golf, though, like I was saying, in order for me to win a big tournament like that, I'm going to have to drop one of my best rounds of my career in the moment at the biggest stage, and then play really great after that as well, and then be able to close the deal against these players who average that. That's a tough thing to do.
Well, it's a daunting task for anyone that thinks, man, I just had the best round of my life and it's rated 1098. and Ricky or McBeth are like, oh yeah, that's cool. Sorry, I just busted out on 11-12 on you. You know, like you just had the best round of your life, and I still beat you by 2. You know, like, sorry.
Well,
it's not even that. It's more like I had the best round of my life at this tournament, and I followed it up with a solid round of 1,010, or 1,015. And Paul and Ricky are like, that's cool. 2 1060s beat that.
Yeah.
And that's not even tough for us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's me playing a little bit better than average today.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, it's crazy.
It is.
It's so the best tournament I've ever played rating wise. The best tournament I ever played rating wise, I got beat by 8 shots or 6 shots. I averaged like 1070 and I got beat by like 6 shots, I think. It was at a Memorial warm-up. I shot an 1100 rated round, followed by like a 1050 and a 1060, and Nico went 1090, 1090, 1080 or something, beat me by 6.
Exactly.
That stuff kind of happens sometimes. You know, but then you have people like Greg Barsby. He broke through and won the tournament and was able to battle those nerves, which he hasn't been able to do before. You know, and that gives I also said this at the beginning of last year, that there was going to be more winners than any other year, different winners, and that Ricky and Paul weren't going to win all the majors, and they didn't.
Yeah. Eagle got one, Barsby got one.
Paul.
And Paul, yeah, USDGC. I was trying to think of the last one. I'm like, oh yeah, USDGC. Paul got one.
Yep.
Wow.
And like I said before on one of our podcasts that I was on with you guys, was that the harder the courses, the less those guys win. So if the courses keep getting harder, the better chance everybody else is going to have to win the tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more mistakes will be made by everybody, but it's
the best player, the person who's throwing the best that day, will win.
Yeah.
A question was asked a little earlier, and I'm going to bring it all the way back full circle to that. It's a slightly different shift, but Pro Tour clearly changing up the media game plan this year, whether that's within the team or among you, and whether that's I'll say a Discraft team thing or even you and other players. Does any of that impact decisions? Does that impact what you guys think about it? I mean, you're out there trying to play the best golf every weekend. Are you worried about anything outside of that?
Yeah, well, of course. So I want Discraft players to play the biggest events and the Discraft events. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Tours, National Tour Majors, I'm pretty sure those remain the biggest tournaments that we have, and those are the stops that I'm going to try to make every year as long as I can.
Media wise, live, post production, this crew, that crew, how much stock do you put in all of that?
I definitely put stock into it, but Pro Tour, National Tour Majors are going to have all those things that and that's why I'm going to those, is because no matter what, they're going to have coverage. Those are the biggest tournaments. So I don't really have to, I don't put stock into it, because I just assume that one comes with the other.
Okay. Yeah. And they do, which is great. I mean, fans can now just count on that. Oh, this is a such and such event. It's going to have, this type of coverage. I'll follow that up. How long before I can pin maybe you and like an Oakley down and get some commentary on the fans are dying for it. They want some Nantucket Open commentary laid down. The video's edited. When you guys ready for that?
You've been messaging us, and we've been like, yeah, we could do it, and then we totally don't totally ghost you. At least I know I do, for sure.
Yeah.
I ghost
so
you
Todd and Louisa and all the Nantucket diehards, myself included, are dying to get this this thrown on, this commentary put on. What day this week can we nail that down?
This week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
okay. You wanted to put? Oh no, connection's bad. Oh,
I'll reach out to Eric and we'll get. I mean, You guys just got to sit
You
down and
got
watch
it.
some
No,
golf.
I said we both said that we would do it. So yes, the sooner the better for sure. And
The sooner the
my
better.
weeks have been opening up as the holiday season has come to really a close. So yeah, let's do it.
And to be fair, this is it's not totally self-serving. Fans are dying for more fresh content. And so now is a good time. The CCDGs and me and some of the other events, whether I went to them for free or was paid or whatever, like people are just dying for more fresh content. And Nantucket's not going to disappoint.
Come out to the Shelley and do some.
Yeah, I don't need more stuff to edit. That's the problem. I need commentary on stuff that is edited.
Then we can just do it. We're do it live, and it's all good. We bust out both of the things.
Let's just make it happen.
Nantucket, just like that. Bam.
We'll make it happen. Everybody wants it. All right, Yuli. We need a number between 1 and 5 from you, as we're going to soon draw for our Patreon supporters. Any number between 1 and 5, but then it has to have a good reason behind it.
5.
And you chose 5. Why?
Because I'm guessing other people wouldn't choose 5.
All right.
That's fair enough.
Question for you real quick. When are we going to see a disc with your name on it?
Yeah.
Man, soon, for sure.
Like tomorrow? Next week?
No. It we usually showcase the tour series in right around Bowling Green. I believe is when a lot of those come out, but I'm definitely going to have a couple runs of what will be my tour series disc. I'll have a few runs, hopefully in time for the Memorial, and So
what is that?
What disc?
It's a really good disc. That's what it is.
One that turns over
a little late turnover. I'm thinking it's a Yuli Mantis.
No, but it's a pretty stable disc.
Oh.
I can say it's definitely not the Mantis.
No.
Oh.
Okay, fine.
Whatever.
All right. Fine, Yuli.
I'll buy some when you commentate on Nantucket. Then I'll finally buy some. All right, buddy. Well, we're going to give away some free stuff. We're going to cut you loose. We're going to give away some free stuff here on the show. And we're looking forward to talking to you more as the next few weeks unfold and we start jumping into 2019's disc golf season, which is right around the corner.
Bro.
2 months.
Can't wait.
Less than 2 months.
You guys are awesome. What is there, like 5 people still on right now?
Oh, there's triple digits, man.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't mess around.
That's how we do it.
Nice. Thank you guys for staying up.
Yeah, people love the Yuli action. We keep giving it to them.
Awesome. Well, thanks for staying up, everybody. And I got to hit the sack, though.
All right, buddy.
I get to get that good sleep.
You go get it. And thanks, as always, for joining us. And we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
See you guys.
All right.
Later.
Nantucket.
Yeah, it's too late. He didn't hear that one.
That's fine.
All right.
All right. So Yuli has unofficially sort of kind of helped decide our Patreon winner of the night, because Johnny is going to select the random generator button 5 times or 4 times, then on the 5th.
Yeah, the 5th time.
Well, 5th time,
So,
however that works.
all right.
And
we have 202 users. I added 2 who signed up during the show, Mike
What?
Schwartz
You
and
are
Nicholas Bordell.
top of it.
I did. Normally I do it right before the show, but I saw some pop in my email, so I quickly added them. So we're going to do 5. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and
man,
the 5th one
suspense
is
killing me.
198.
How are these sorted?
These are sorted. It's Robert McCall.
Oh, that guy? All right. Well, Robert.
Robert McCall.
I knew he was dying to get himself a clear, thanks to Steve Rico being on the show earlier tonight, I had all lined up a clear pinnacle rival. Robert, I mean, if you just want me to sign it so you can put it on the wall next to your other disc golf guy disc, I can do that. I'm guessing he will not be throwing this, as he is sponsored by Dynamic Discs and, of course, works there with the Trilogy family. But Robert's your winner. That's pretty funny. Thank you for being how gracious is that? That's the big takeaway here. He is on some other podcast occasionally. I think they put a mic in front of him. He's occasionally on this other podcast, and yet he is here as a SmashBox TV podcast supporter via Patreon of our show. And that just speaks volumes of Robert's character and his hair.
Yeah, it was literally just randomly sorted tonight. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I sorted it by a column where almost all the columns were identical, or all the things were identical. So,
and he's been a long-time SmashBox Patreon supporter.
Yeah, Robert has been a very long-time supporter of ours.
That is very, very nice. And if you are interested in getting yourself one of these or something of this nature with the Disc Golf Guy stamp, I do have some aftermaths and actually a whole slew of discs, Ghost, bunch of legacy stuff, if you're interested in picking one up directly. I think I'm going to start a little campaign. I think I need to do some fundraising on my own. I think I want a desktop computer of my own so that I can edit quicker and better when I am home. That seems silly. Can I be more productive with a desktop at home?
I mean,
I hate disconnecting my computer and then reconnect it and then traveling all. And I always will have, obviously, a traveling laptop, but I want to be able to comfortably just sit down and do what I want to do on a powerful desktop. So maybe I should sell some Frisbees.
You could do that. And I would never say, hey, don't get a real solid computer. But you could also get a decent docking station for your laptop that you could just plug literally like one cable in, and then you'd have your extra monitors and whatnot. If you didn't want to go ahead and spend the money on a full good editing station, because a good editing station is probably
like $300, $400.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's going to be a decent amount of money. You're probably looking at $1,500 for just a decent one. Now you can go above and beyond.
$1,400 out of my range.
I know. You can go above and beyond that, obviously up into the $2,000 to $2,500 range, depending on what you want to get, and all the latest and greatest bells and whistles. But you can get a pretty solid one with it gives you 90 and 95% of the power at about $1,500. So.
All right. Yeah, cool one says, sell that 2015 digital camo grip bag. That could be the first thing on the auction block. Cool one. If you offer me the right $300 bill, that becomes yours. And that will kickstart. That will immediately kickstart the new editing computer campaign. All right. Anyway, well, I think we've had a pretty good show here tonight. As
so many guests, so many people in our chat room.
Yes, we appreciate all of you guys. Mark Hill, yes, Mark, you are also looking to become a contributor of the campaign. Mark graciously reached out the other day. I posted in Discraft. I'm like, I've got some random Discraft stuff within arm's reach. Here's some pictures, and I posted them. And immediately people started claiming this. I'll take that. I'll buy this. I'll buy that. And Mark reached out, and Mark has an affinity, I think, for pink discs.
I don't blame him. They're very easy to find.
And I showed him 6 to 8 to 10 different pink discs, and I think every single one, with the exception of one, he said, I'll take from you. So I'm putting together a care package there for Mark, who's also going to help kickstart this new computer campaign. And Mark, hopefully I can reach out tomorrow, and we can solidify that deal. I'll keep finding more discs for you if you need them. So... James Conrad news somebody has asked about. I saw his name come up, but I don't know if there is any news. Is there? Or maybe it was released within minutes. What?
I haven't seen anything.
He's sponsored by a new hammock company. He's got an Innova. Okay, so he's got the Innova.
You got the 2018.
No, that's the 2018 Innova logo on his Facebook page. So I don't know if there's any new news about James Conrad or not.
I've not heard any news on Conrad. Yes, he's sponsored.
Yeah.
Zachariah Johnson, currently unsponsored. Dave Feldberg, currently unsponsored. We'll see what happens. I know Zachariah was saying he is in some negotiations back and forth with some people, so I don't know exactly what that entails.
Yeah, I mean, he flat out said today, though, right, that he's planning on being unsponsored.
No, I don't think he said that. I don't.
As of right now, he is.
As of right now, he's as of right now he is unsponsored.
It sounds like he's.
I don't think he is. His goal is to be unsponsored.
Correct. Okay.
I think right now he is unsponsored, but he said that he had been talking to, negotiating with people and whatnot. So I think that could, or in theory, should change at some point, depending on what he can be, what can be offered. So.
Okay. Well, Yeah, I don't see any new news, so to speak, on James Conrad. But congratulations. I don't know if we mentioned it last week, if it was within that time frame. Probably was. But Lisa Fakis made a post about purchasing a Sprinter type van and then decking that out. So another full-time touring on the road RV van type conversion process in place. And I sound silly, but I love seeing them. I love seeing
the different layouts.
The layouts, but I mean, just the people now fully committing to that lifestyle. Sarah Hokum, who just signed off, obviously was an adopter of that. And then, seeing the Nate Perkins, the Paige Pierce, just all of these people converting, very early adopters in Nate and Val, way back when after he won in 2011 Worlds. Just, I love seeing it. It's exciting. It does mean we're moving in the right direction as more people are committing to touring full time. And Madison Walker, we mentioned earlier, made an announcement tonight that she's with the star team of Team Innova for the 2019 season. So now we're going to close it out. We appreciate each and every one of you, all of our Patreon supporters, Steve, Rico, Dixon Jowers at the last moment, along with Paul Ulibarri. Thank you guys all for joining us in our regular show and the after show. Looking forward to next week. I think we'll be kind of back to normal, as we'll be on the 8th of January, second Tuesday of the year, and ready to bring you another year of SmashBoxxTV. For Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, and all of our Smashies out there, we love you guys. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.